Now then, of course, there's the notion of going guerrilla or not going guerrilla. Now, the term guerrilla means you're shooting on a location where you don't have permission to shoot. And some would say I'm the expert in doing this. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but, I'm a guy who likes to sometimes get permits. That being said, I have skirted with the law and been arrested for not having a permit sometimes. I can't say to you, go guerrilla and don't get a permit. I think that's something you should judge yourself. If you want to do that, you do it. You don't, you don't. Here's places to avoid if you're going to go guerrilla. I shot in an area where there's a lot of movie people, like people work on a movie ranch and everything else. And that movie ranch was here, and around the corner, I found a nice desert road I wanted to shoot on. So there's people who work in the film industry close by. They saw us filming, and my sound guy could pick up the sound from here because he was on his phone. This guy saw us filming in the street. He immediately called the police and said, there's a film crew here filming and you should come and arrest them, basically. Now, he was doing that because, number one, he worked for a movie ranch up the road where they would charge people to shoot there. So he knew the business, and he wanted to be an asshole and tread on people who were doing it guerrilla because, he was obviously some sort of guy who liked to do that sort of thing. In Australia, when I've shot, I've often told people, look, I was shooting at my house once, and I went around to the neighbors and say, look, I'm doing a movie, blah, 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 blah. Just want you to know I'm doing a movie in the house in case you hear any weird screams or, weird lighting or anything else. Just want you to know what's going on. Most people say, oh, that's cool. Occasionally, people will then start complaining later on because they'll see all the cars parked in the street and everything else. You have to manage that one very tactfully and always be polite to people. Once you make an enemy of somebody, especially a neighbor, they're going to do everything they can to make noise to destroy your film. They'll start mowing the lawn or doing this or whatever they can, calling the police on you whenever they can. People like to stomp on you when you're trying to do something, creative and special and requires a lot of people and cars and equipment. So you've got to try to make allies out of every single person. One way I did that was when I was doing my first film. We were set up in the house, like I said, and people were going to start mowing the lawn next door. I said to the guy, look, I know you've got to mow the lawn. How about if I pay for your lawn to be mowed this week at a time when we're not shooting? And I will actually pay the bill for that person, to come and mow the lawn. And they said, well, no, look, I understand. Look, I appreciate what you're saying. But, don't worry about it. I'll mow the lawn, in a few days. Don't worry about it. If I'd gone to that guy and said, look, asshole, you're fucking up my movie. Can you stop mowing your lawn right now? He would have just kept mowing his lawn and making more and more noise and revving that little engine up. So instead, I offered him something, and he didn't feel like he should take the money and have his lawn mowed for him by somebody else. He said, look, I understand your situation. You've been nice to offer me something. I'll offer you something back. I'll refrain from mowing my lawn until later on. And that's sort of how you have to run it. Never... Oh, here's another good situation. I was shooting guerrilla. I was doing a short film. We found this empty field. It was like all just mud and dirt, and it was amazing. And it basically was they're about to build a big shopping center on there. So we thought we'd shoot this as another planet. It was kind of cool. So we turned up there halfway through the day. We had a camera crane and everything going off, and a lot of action. A very exciting little short film. Halfway through the day, this guy turned up. We're doing a nice big wide shot, and this guy just drove up and sat there in his car, right in the middle of the field. And, we sort of went like this, and he didn't move. Now, one of the actors, I remember, is going to say, started yelling at him, say, fuck up, move, starting to be abusive to this guy because he's spoiling our shot. I said, no, let's just, let's wait and see here, because we don't really have permission to be here. We shouldn't be anything. So anyway, I just went up to him and say, hi, look, my name's Neil Johnson. I started thinking really cleverly. I said, look, we don't know who owns this beautiful piece of property, but we decided to do a movie here, and just want to let you know what we're doing. And, we're doing blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah, I noticed you doing that. I said, this is my property you're on. I said, oh, wow, it's really nice to meet you. Wow, thank you, sir. Sir, you have a wonderful property. I realize you're going to put a shopping center here soon, but it's really nice that, that you have this place, and I hope you don't mind. We just were doing a little student film and everything else. And, had I approached that guy and said, asshole, you're in my shot, he would have got the police on me and basically, done something nice. But because I approached him nicely and humbly and didn't get all, cocky and everything else, he said, look, okay, I get it. You're shooting here. It's okay. You can stay here. I just wasn't sure what you guys were doing. I was going to kick you guys off, but, and he basically said, you're a nice guy. I can see that. You can stay the whole day. So that's sort of the attitude you have. Sometimes you just got to go cap in hand and say, look, I'm on a low budget film, okay? I can't afford to shoot here. I don't have the money, but I really want to shoot in your place. And so I really would appreciate it. We've got a very small crew. Is there any way we can do it? And that person will come back to you and say, look, I understand you've approached me nicely. I'll do blah, blah, blah for you. Sometimes they'll say, no, forget about it. I hate film crews. It's okay. As far as getting permits go, permits are very useful, especially when you're doing a lot of big armies and soldiers and stuff with guns. Especially when you got guns, you want to have a permit. It really helps, or fake guns. Permits are usually run by permit officers or permit, and these places are managing, the permissions to shoot. There's always hidden expenses when you're getting location permits, and just be aware of this. They'll tell you, oh, it's only $200, but you have to have special insurances in place. You have to have this in place and that in place and everything else. And, going back to the budget, by the way, we do have in our budget insurances. The reason we have insurances is because we knew we were going to apply for certain permits and we had to pay for that permit, with the insurance. It's easy to find an insurance company. And often if you go to the permit place, you say, can you please recommend a company that you deal with regularly who's easy for insurances? And they say, go to this person, this person, this person. Getting permits is a lot of paperwork and a lot of running around, a lot of going to the offices and making friends with people. Make sure you go there and be friendly with them and say, look, can you please help me? Don't say, here, I'm an asshole, I know what I want, blah, 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 blah. Just go in there nicely and say, can you please help me? And when they say, how many crew do you have? So just sort of maybe exaggerate, under exaggerate a bit. If you've got 10 people in your crew, you say, there's only 3 people or 4 people, and if you've got 50 people, you say, 25 people. It does help a little bit because, they're managing these things. Another thing with permits is, do this early. I wanted to shoot in Vasquez Rocks for Alien Armageddon, and I did this 3 weeks out, and Vasquez Rocks is a great location and the permits are pretty cheap there, but it was all booked out the entire time. You need to plan ahead as much as possible for your permits. Once you've locked your location down, apply for this early. Do all the paperwork and do what you have to get them if you have to. If you're shooting guerrilla, make sure you're in a location where the park rangers don't find you. It's happened to me where park rangers have turned up. Now, a little trick I did was I put on an Australian accent. I said, "G'day, how you going? From Australia." "Yep, I'm here filming my movie. It's a short film. We're students from Australia and we're doing a movie." He said, "You don't have permission. Where's your permit?" "Oh, I didn't know you had to have permits. I'm sorry." And, it worked. He didn't fine us, thankfully. And we got out of having to, basically pay for, the permit. But I'm not recommending you do this. But if you're going to shoot on location, after that, we didn't have a permit. So we got in a boat then and went to another location close by where nobody could see us. And that was probably safe and then, a clever thing. But once you've been caught, they're going to be watching you like a hawk. So don't be a cocky asshole and just go down the road and shoot the same again, because then they'll call the cops on you and you will definitely be arrested for sure. But be clever about it. Of course, if you're shooting way in the desert somewhere, and it might be a place where you might need a permit. But if you're in a place where nobody can find you, you're so deep in the desert that nobody can find where you're at, maybe you don't need to bother about a permit. But if they can see you from the highway and the cops drive past, they see you, they'll know straight away these guys don't have permits, because they can, they'll check their little register and say these guys are unpermitted. It's just something you have to decide for yourself. Obviously, officially you should. You should always have insurance in place as well, because, if somebody is hurt on set or anything else, that's what it's there for, and it's a good peace of mind. But, if you're going to go guerrilla, you're going to go without insurances. Not telling you should. Be very careful, be very clever about it, and, find ways to do it. Don't be afraid to go off the beaten track and find places where, people can't find you, because if they can't find you, you can't find them, that's good. They'll never be able to find you and say, "Where's your permit?" If you're shooting on a main street like I did once, for sure they'll stop and ask.
The construction of the weapons went along quite well, up until the point when I had to actually paint them all black, and due to the previous experience of painting inside the apartment, I felt it would be healthier to take them outside and paint them. But being in a residential apartment complex, this wasn't really possible without drawing undue attention. So I managed to climb up onto the roof of the complex, and that enabled me to paint the items without being seen. However, the second day of painting the guns up on the roof of the complex brought some unwanted attention in the fact that we had several, at one point, helicopters flying over, then circling back, and then they seemed to be hovering a few hundred meters above. And it was at this point I looked down on the roof and realized that I had laid out around a dozen large rifles and a half a dozen small armaments and various grenades, bombs. From a helicopter looking down, this possibly could look like some sort of militia or terrorist activity. So the helicopters tore off at great speed. It was at this point I gathered up all the weapons and basically took them down and hid them under a dumpster underneath the apartment centre, and basically went into hiding in the apartment. And it wasn't long after this that a SWAT team arrived and did a patrol around the area and were knocking on doors and stuff. This brought me back to the incident that occurred in America on the first experience with working with this type of props and hardware in the hotel where we were staying. We were doing some costume tests in the car park, and I was all dressed up with military gear and flak jacket and weapons, and that brought some undue attention. That was just a squad car or two at the time, but this recent incident in LA basically brought a fully fledged SWAT team.
Dangerous. There's guys outside walkie-talkies watching us, management of the building, because they're wondering what we're doing. And they've gotten word of the fact that we're doing a film here. And they're going to close us down soon, but we kept the door locked.
Going on location in the desert was really dusky and hot, but it was such a great experience. It felt like we were on another planet.
There were two scenes that were difficult for me. The scene out in the desert was the first scene that we shot when I was fishing. That was the most difficult scene. And that's when that's the scene that actually forced me to go into the character immediately. It was the first scene of the movie they shot. Because there were so many things going on. I'm talking to, it's not Jay Lene anymore, now I'm, Darasi Vorde, where I'm talking to a clone here and a clone there and a half-breed here, and I'm talking in my thing here, and I'm looking at a ship over there, and then I'm talking on this, hologram over here, and I have a relationship that's different with all these people, all within a few pages.
And in this case, we were heading into the Mojave Desert. There were times we were heading up into Death Valley, Red Rock Canyon, some quite exotic locations. There was some very hot days out in the desert. Logistically, the film was very difficult to mount. When you're taking a whole group of people out on location, you've got to feed them, you've got to make sure they're comfortable, you've got to have facilities for them. There was a whole support crew we had.
James Lacey, and I'd be doing makeup.
Just walk past me, guys.
The harshness of being out there without the security of having, tents around, because you couldn't put tents up because it was too windy, put us right into character. And, as Darasi, I'm a fisherman, so I'm just out there fishing.
Nobody cared about that old spaceship at the back of the museum. Besides, everybody needs to make a buck.
Welcome to another day in the desert. We're here in, I don't know where the fuck we are, but it's somewhere interesting, and somewhere in California. And we have permits today. It's the first time ever I've had a, it's not often I have permits.
What's the worst experience you've had so far in this outfit, Todd?
I took pieces of rock out of my arm for when I took the first death in the movie. And it was awesome. It was awesome, but I tell you what, a little painful.
Figuring out what camera to shoot on. Now, I love cameras, okay? I'm a freak for cameras, and I prefer to buy cameras rather than rent. With Alien Armageddon, I owned my own camera. With Humanity's End, I own the camera as well. Now, the reason for that was that, I work as a director all the time, and it makes sense for me to own cameras and have cameras. So, that's generally how I work it. The most important thing about a camera, obviously in these days, you're probably going to be shooting high definition. You may not necessarily want to be shooting film anymore because film's dead as far as I'm concerned. Though, film always looks good. If you can afford film, do it, but you've got a lot of expenses. We're going to assume you're shooting high definition because just about everybody is now. And if you're shooting film, you already know what you're doing. You shouldn't be doing my course. So high definition cameras, don't touch mini DV, standard definition cameras. They're gone. All that format's gone. All that stuff's out the door. In my opinion, tape is dead. Everything should be on card or hard drive anyway. That's my feelings. I've been saying this since 2005. I've been trying to go tapeless since 2005. So, physical media is disappearing. So these lessons I'm going to give you are all about shooting on hard drives and card systems and other formats, flash drives. Number one, the most important thing is your glass, the piece of glass that's on the camera. I'm a big fan of Canon cameras, like the Canon 5D, which I used in my last film. And I also use a red camera as well. The most important thing about these cameras is the lenses. And I had very, very expensive lenses. By expensive, I mean, $300 to $500, $1,000 for a lens. Why? Because it looks better, and it's all about glass, and it's all about making people look good. If you're shooting on, a video camera and you've got the standard fixed little lens, kind of like we're shooting on this system here for this course, it's going to look video. It's going to look like shit. Once you've got these things called prime lenses, I'll explain what a prime lens is. On a standard video camera, you have a zoom control. You can zoom in and zoom out, and everything else. It's a lens that does everything. It does wide, it does tight, whatever you want. That's a certain type of lens. A prime lens is a lens that's fixed. And by this, I mean it's only this. Wherever you put the lens, you can't zoom in and out. It's one angle. It's one position. It's here or it's here. It can be a wide angle prime lens. It can be a close-up prime lens. But basically, it's a lens that only shoots one position only. And you've got to make sure it's in focus. These lenses tend to look better because what they do is give you a depth in your picture and a quality that makes it look more like film. The point is you always want the movie to look like film because film was the standard for many years. And even though we're all shooting high definition and it's all digital and fabulous, there's still a tendency to bring it back to looking quality. And quality means imitating film. So these lenses, these prime lenses, fixed lenses, are basically the types of things you want to be shooting with. So that being said, choice of formats. And there are so many formats out there, it's ridiculous. I'm going to give you two important things. Number one is, make sure you have a good type of lens on the camera. Number two, make sure your color space is good. Now I'll explain what this means. When a camera records, it records, the image comes through the lens and goes onto a sensor, a little LCD or, CCD chip or whatever, a little sensor chip inside, and it translates that information from that chip onto a computer hard drive or a card or something else. It's how it translates that information that's important. So if it takes that information and compresses it down and makes it, kind of really bad quality, no matter how good a lens you have on, the picture's going to look like crap. Now, the amount of compression you do is related to, one of the things it's related to is color space. Now, if you're shooting with a really nice big camera, like a red camera, for example, or something else like that, or a Phantom or something else, they have a nice lens on front. They take the information onto the sensor, usually a larger sensor. Then they'll take that information from the sensor and put it onto some sort of hard drive system. Now, it doesn't compress the information. It keeps it as raw data. Of course, this is expensive and needs much better, faster hard drives and much more storage space. But the advantage is it's raw data. It's not compressed. It's not squeezed down into to be a little file size. When you squeeze stuff down, you have to get rid of information. The information you might get rid of is some of the color information. and also the resolution of the picture and God knows what else. Compression means shitty quality. And the more compression you have, the shittier the quality is. And you can figure out how much compression is going on by how many megabits per second, or MBS they often call it, Basically, if it's a higher data rate, if it's a data rate of 100 megabits per second, it might be better quality. If it's like 25, it's kind of shitty. If it's 5 megabits per second, it's really shitty. It's going to look like, a webcam or something. So you want to be aware of that. And that's a technical thing you can really discuss with your DP as well if you're not really up on cameras. But the color space is important. Just to give you a broad example, 422 color space is okay. 420 color space means it's, 2 bits of the color are basically, a portion of that color has been removed, is not as good. And the reason it's not as good is when you start to color grade it and start to make, the colors later nice, it starts to add noise and artifacts into the image. So if you're working in a 422 color space, you're always going to be ahead later on. And this is stuff that, we can talk about later in color grading. But 420 color space or 411 color space, these are pretty bad things to be dealing with. And don't be expected to be, do a fully dark, mysterious, epic looking movie like Underworld or something when you've got 420 color space. It can't really be done properly. There is an art to it, of course, and this is something, as I said, you should discuss with your DP. That being said, whatever format you choose to shoot on, expect hopefully, huge amounts of data. What do I recommend? At this point, this year, the Canon 5D Mark II is a good camera. I expect there's a Mark III coming out soon. There's also other ranges of cameras out there. Canon cameras are often very good. They have a nice 422 compression. Sony have a new range of cameras, which you can put lenses onto as well. Look at the color space, okay? Yes, it's nice to have good lenses, but it's also nice to have good color space in these systems. And these are the two factors you've really got to be concerned about. Does it have good color space, bad color space? Does it have good lenses, bad lenses? The rest of it is kind of moot because, 3 years, 5 years, there's always new technology. Any camera can be high definition. An iPhone can be high definition now. It doesn't mean a thing if you've got shit color space, if you've got high compression, and you've got a shit lens. It means nothing. Don't get bamboozled by, this or that. Talk to people who are physically using these cameras and, understand the information. Go to camera rental places. Say, look, what's the color space? What's this? What's this? What's this? Ask them and they'll explain it to you, because they want to rent you the best camera. So they'll explain everything to you. But it is clever to know what's going on inside your camera a little bit as a producer, and then talk to your DP and see what he recommends. A lot of DPs now will own their own cameras and lenses. That's a good DP to have. That's why I hired myself, because I had a lot of good cameras and lenses. But choose your format. Now, the most important person you can have on set now in this modern day and age, one of the most important people is there's so many terms right now. You call it the DI guy, the digital intermediate guy, the guy who basically takes the data from the camera and puts it onto a hard drive. So as you're shooting on these little cards or whatever, the card will fill up. You take the card out of the camera, you put it into your laptop, and you'll copy that data across to another hard drive. This guy is really important. If he fucks up, you've lost all your footage for the day. So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this time and time again. It's all about backups. Doing backups of your data. This is so rudimentary, but so many people don't do it, and people fuck up every single time. It's all about backups. So basically, you shot some stuff on this camera. You take the data, you copy all the data. You don't say to try to decode it and copy little bits of it. You copy the entire package of data onto your hard drive, and you put it onto this hard drive. You call it day one. Drop it in, the whole bit of footage. Immediately, you start copying that data to another hard drive. If you can copy it from the same card, copy that information to another hard drive from the same original source. The reason being is it's happened to me sometimes when you're copying the data across, it gets corrupted. So if you're then copying that data from that copied hard drive, you're copying the corruption. Always copy from the original card, not once but twice, okay? Very important, or 3 times if you can. Meanwhile, the shooting continues, so that guy is just managing the copying. Make sure he's not distracted. There's no coffee or any other shit around these hard drives. The moment those hard drives are copied for the day, you take that hard drive, you put in your pocket, your briefcase, you walk off set with that hard drive. The second hard drive you give to somebody else to hold on to. If there's a fire, a car accident, whatever happens, that footage is safe and safe forever. You've got to be freaky about this. When you go home, check the data, make sure it's all intact, make sure it's all working. By doing that, you know, there's, depending on how you shoot, you've got to figure out how to do that. Somebody will have to teach you how to do that depending on the format. But basically, be a freak about backups. You have not done your day's work until that data is backed up. And you cannot move on these. You can't say, I'll do it tonight or when I get home, or I'll do it in the morning or whatever before the shoot. Do it immediately. Do not think for 1 second that that data is going to be, you know, rescued, or, you know, you will forget about backing that data up for sure. 100%. You'll forget about backing it up. You'll go the next day to shoot. You'll erase all the footage. It's like, oh my God, where's the footage from day 2? Oh, we didn't back it up because I forgot, because I had to go home, because I had to do this. Whatever happens, back up that data immediately. Make a copy of the data immediately and continue to back it up. You take it home, do another backup, you know, because fuck ups happen everywhere. Constantly back it up. So you probably have 3 versions of it in 3 different locations, archived and everything else. That's a safe way to be. There's a whole, you know, it's a whole management idea when you're dealing with hard drives and everything else. Hard drives fuck up always, constantly. So when you have 2 hard drives as backups, okay, you have one brand and have a different brand. 2 different brands of hard drives, very important, because if one fucks up, the other might fuck up. It might be a bad batch. Make sure you've got 2 different brands. If you've got another method of backing up, like a Blu-ray data disc, for example, do one to a hard drive, one to another hard drive, and one to a data disc. Back up to as many different formats as possible, but back up constantly, and don't breathe until that backup hard drive is sitting in your briefcase in your car as you're driving home at the end of the shoot. Be a freak for this. You'll be so distracted by everything on set that you'll always forget to make copies of the footage and back it up. And then you'll be like, what the fuck? Be organized with your hard drive. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Be precise about what it is. And then your audio, which you probably will record separately, hopefully, if you're clever. Record your audio separately. Have a folder for video, a folder for audio. Be so well organized, because chaos is always happening on the set. Everything will happen. There'll be the meltdown, there'll be a drama, there'll be a problem, this and that will happen. Something will always fuck up. And you'll always get distracted from your backups. But number 1, your backups are everything. If you don't back up, you're screwed. The makeup department, obviously. This is what I have to say about makeup artists. Often great people, sometimes flaky people, sometimes sleazy people, sometimes inexperienced people, and sometimes they overdo it. It's hard to find a good makeup professional, I'm going to be really honest with you. You know, a makeup artist will come on set and she'll get nervous and she'll overdo the makeup, and suddenly you have a clown face and, you know, the eyebrows are ridiculous and stuff. The biggest mistake I see on film sets with makeup artists is they overdo it. They overdo it to the point of ridiculous, to where the person just can't even move their face because it's so heavy for makeup. So less is more unless you're a whore. And that's, you know, that's true about makeup. Less is more unless you're a whore. So don't find a makeup person who's overdoing it all the time, you know, and really talk to them about this, you know, be open to it. Because if they overdo the makeup and really overdo it, then it's always going to be the same shit. The next day, they're not going to get exactly the same, and it'll be different the second day and the third day and the fourth day. Do a makeup test if you have to, but say, look, I really want minimal makeup, and that's usually the rule, because I rarely know any good times when too much makeup looks good. It doesn't generally translate. Sometimes you need a bit of makeup to cover something up. I got bags under my eyes. Always I need a bit of makeup. But, you know, really work your makeup person. Talk to them. If they're inexperienced, say, look, this type of film, it's just a very simple blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go heavy on this. Please, I want this to be very light makeup. Always pull them back, because they feel makeup artists have to justify their position, and they justify themselves by thinking, oh, if I don't put lots of makeup on people, I'm not doing my job. Sometimes true. But what the camera sees is somebody with tons of makeup on their face, and when the lighting's harsh, you're going to see they've got a lot of makeup on, and then it kind of takes people out of the reality of the film. So, and then they start to sweat, and then things change, and you got lots of touch-ups. A makeup artist, if they can, should always be on set doing checks in between. So once you finish rolling, make sure that makeup artist comes in and does a little check really quickly to make sure it's all consistent, but not to be overdone. If you're really caught out, I hate to say this, and don't hate me, makeup artists. If you can't afford a makeup artist, then and you can't go with that, then then so be it. You have to get your wife or your husband or whoever it is to do some makeup, or your daughter or something. A little bit of powder goes a long way. A little bit of coverage goes a long way. Overdone makeup looks ridiculous. Sometimes actors are better doing the makeup themselves, because they know what looks good on their face. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. Always do a makeup test no matter what, just to see what the hell you're going to get, because you don't want to be surprised with a clown face on the first day of shooting, and you don't want to have to fix that later in post-production. Love and respect your makeup artist. Hair is another thing. Don't often have hairdressers on set, though I have 3 hairdressers in the family, and I know a lot about hair. It just depends on what you're doing. Often your makeup artist will often do the hair as well. Again, it's something you should test. I made a mistake, and it's not really a mistake, but on my 3rd movie, Battle Space, the hairpiece she wore took 2 to 3 hours to do. It looked amazing, but every morning they had to wake up early and do 2 to 3 hours of the hairpiece stuff. And, don't know if that was a right or wrong decision, but it still looks cool. I love wardrobe, and I really like fashion and stuff, and I've often designed the costumes. Now, how I do it for science fiction films is really basic and interesting. Don't go silver and crazy and glitzy and everything else. It doesn't look cool. If you think science fiction, think military. Think basic colors. Don't be fashionized when you do a movie, whatever it is, because you'll date your film so quickly. You can look at a film and say, oh, that was done in 2009. I can tell because they're wearing the pink fluoro t-shirts, which were cool for about 1 season. Keep your clothing simple. Military stuff works in the future as well for some reason, and then add a few things. I've often been one who would go to a sports store, for example, or an army surplus store. These are the 2 places that you'll love. Find the cheap army surplus in the sports stores, and maybe a Marshall's or an outlet store where they sell all the fashion clothing cheap, or the winter stuff or whatever. Go to these places. If you're doing science fiction, try to find mix and match weird things in weird places. Like, I've got some knee pads I put on people's arms, and it looks like a piece of body armor, Be clever about this stuff. Sometimes costume stores have interesting little items you can throw on. Sometimes kids' toys might have little dress-up clothing that you can spray black, and it looks really cool. So be clever about the wardrobe, but don't overdo it. Put a little money into it, and you'll get back great benefits.
Blake is obviously wonderful. Seems to have anything that needs to be built or put together, he's totally got under control. I have so little talent for things like that I have an enormous amount of respect for what Blake does.
Blake has a vision. He starts with a vision. He knows what he wants. He's surrounded with tubs full of clothing and pieces of uniforms and odds and ends and bits and gadgets, and he just takes one look at you and he says, yeah, let's put this on you, we'll put this on you, we'll put this on you, there. And you think, oh, come on, and then you go take a look, and it's amazing what he puts together. And what this stuff here, we actually dragged a couple of people down out on the street and just pulled clothing off them and put it on me. It was great.
Mr. Blakey, he has a piece of my heart. So loved Blakey. He was there every moment for me, and he wore, 1,000 arms. He wore 1,000 hats. He did everything from dress me to make sure my costumes were on the right way and buttoned, to my props.
Another clever thing to do is, if somebody's done a movie and they've got the costumes left over, usually they want to get rid of them. Offer them some money if they got something that's cool. If they might have an alien costume or a military piece of body armor and stuff. The real military body armor costs a lot of money, so just go for the fake shit. It'll help you out. You can go to sales where they're selling off costumes and things like that. Google, and if you're in a movie town, Google and find the places where they're selling off costumes, and you can always take something from a movie. I took the costumes from a movie called Fortress, and there was these robot things, and I've reused these robot costumes probably time and time again. Don't be afraid to recycle. Sometimes we took we took the car mats from a car, you know, and made them, put a strap on them and made them like, you know, bits of body armor. Be clever about things. Look at that and say, can a person wear that? How would they wear it? Can it be strapped to their body? And, you know, does it work? And often if it's cheap, it can work really well. The guns we had, going into props and stuff, the laser guns we had, well, basically they're kids' toys. They were Nerf guns that we resprayed and painted. And then we added things on. We screwed little bits on. So we got like an electric, you know, drill and screwed on this bit. The bits on the front of the guns in Humanity's End were tent pegs. And then we screwed on light fittings on the side, and we added this bit and added that bit. And in the end, we ended up making some big kick-ass BFGs, big fucking guns, but big giant guns that look kind of cool. And it's, you know, it looks good when they're all painted black. It's amazing how things suddenly look kick-ass. The guns in Alien Armageddon, well, they were airsoft guns. You can buy, you know, the airsoft guns are basically guns you can buy in the US. I don't know if you can buy these in other countries. Sometimes I think Germany you can. These are guns that are replicas of real guns, and we spray them black and add bits to them, and that's how you get your machine guns. Try to be clever, but toy stores are great for buying props, you know, especially with science fiction stuff. Always look at props at toy stores, and also Salvation Army places and other places where they're selling off, you know, secondhand furniture and household items. Household items can be painted black or silver to be made to look like something cool. So always look for interesting things that are cheap and that you can sort of throw together. Props department, again, what I did, I went through the script and I made a list of every single prop in every scene. So we need this, 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 and this. So I had a master list of everything. And then as I made suggestions of where we could get it. So then we went out shopping for a week trying to buy props, and we would piece this together and tick it off and tick it off. And then once you got your props assembled, make sure you got containers to put them in. So, okay, you know that all the props are in one location, either in these little plastic tubs or, you know, if you have a warehouse or a studio you're using or a house, you can say, okay, this room is just props and costumes. Put everything aside in organized spots. Be organized with everything. Be over-organized with everything. Have your lists everywhere. And every day have a list of what props you're going to use and say, okay, on this day we're going to use this prop, and so that way you can get the props ready. So if you're going on location, you might drive out to the desert. You say, okay, we need this gun, we need this piece of costume, we need this piece of body armor, and blah, 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 and a helmet. You look at your list, you have everything there, your checklist. Okay, we need this. Throw it in the truck, drive out to the desert, you got everything. If you follow your lists, you organize with lists every day, you prepare your lists in advance so that every day you just tick them off, then you're a clever producer or a director or whatever. But that way you don't turn up to the desert and say, oh, I forgot the gun, or I forgot the helmet or the costume or whatever. And I've done this. I have forgotten shit, by the way. And that's when you get clever. As I said before, it's important to feed people. If you're getting people to work for you for free, you got to feed them. Food is everything. We need this for sustenance. Food and water. Just be careful of sugary things. Just be careful that straight after the lunch, everyone's going to be on a downer because they ate some heavy pasta or something, or, you know, whatever, and all of a sudden all the stomachs start rumbling and making noises, and their energy and they start going down, you know, about 3 o'clock. Beware of that. Don't overfeed people. Number one, it's cheaper. Number two, don't want to make people feel fat and bloated. Number three, their energy runs out. Choose the foods that are smart, healthy, and clever, and be simple. Don't overthink the food. I'm always overthinking the food all the time and going a little crazy. If you can afford a guy to do all the catering for you, I did. It was good money spent. You know, he came in every day with a wonderful selection of food. I had leftovers every day. I took the food home and ate it for dinner. So happy. You know, that can work in good. Beware, there's people out there in California who, you know, claim to be caterers and are doing catering and taking your money up front and then not turning up on set or turning up with half the food. Beware of people. Don't pay people up front, pay them in installments, because people are trying to scam you every step of the way. That being said, you know, if you have to go to the local supermarket and do sandwiches, do it. Get your production manager to do that. Or get everyone in the crew to say, okay, everyone here now, you're making your own sandwiches. This is this, this, and this. Make your own sandwiches. Keep people hydrated on set, but don't overdo it with all the little nibbles, because then people are going to start hanging around the food place and eating all the food. And the people who eat all the food are the people who are usually the ones who have least amount of work to do. And that way, then when the people who really work hard want to come and get something, there's no food left for them. So don't be crazy about food. Make sure you feed people. Make sure you give them a good meal, but not overdo it. So movie sets. I spoke about locations before, about where to shoot. Again, if you're doing science fiction, you're doing industrial stuff, industrial places are great to shoot science fiction films in, and quarries are also very good. If you don't have a desert, find a quarry and get friendly with them and tell them what you're doing. You might have to have insurance in place. It may be clever to build sets and build warehouses and everything else. When you're going on locations and looking for things, make sure that these locations have good sound. And by good sound, I mean there's not a lot of extraneous noises or birds or cars driving past and everything else. Be reticent and cognizant about what you can hear. Just when you go into a location, just be silent and listen. And what can I hear? I can hear a clock ticking. I can hear the fireplace over there. I can hear a distant car. Is this a good or bad problem? I also shot in the desert in southern Arizona in the middle of summertime, and it got up to be 52 degrees Celsius, which is about 125 degrees Fahrenheit. And we could not shoot for most of the day. I could only shoot at between the hours of 6 and 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. because the rest of the day was too hot. Think about all these little things. Once you turn the studio lights on, the place starts to heat up. So always, always, always have some way to keep everything cool. It's usually the heat factor. Being too cold doesn't happen very often. It's usually people are too hot on movie sets and they're sweating. And that's why, as I said, too much makeup. When you're doing a low budget movie, you got a lot of makeup on, you start to sweat more. It really shows on camera and you look kind of sweaty and creepy. So, be aware of these small points. Very important. What I did on my previous film, Humanity's End, I knew there was a few scenes that needed to be in the captain's bedroom. And so I couldn't afford to rent a warehouse for a few weeks and build the set. What I did is I took my apartment and I built fake walls and literally build the set inside the apartment, and it's cost me about $800, I think, in total. But on camera, it looks fantastic. And if you look at this little excerpt now, you will see, how it was done. When you rent a proper studio, of course, it's not cheap. These were pretty reasonably priced studios.
Neil decided that we needed a bedroom set for Darcy that matched the set stages at Laurel Canyon, but something that we could build ourselves and would have 24-hour access to, so that we could take our time shooting the scenes on that set. Neil flew back to Australia, probably to sell another one of his houses to finance the film a bit further. And in that week that he was away, myself and my colleague, Mr. Emmett, constructed a fully functioning set in the lounge room of Neil's apartment. We didn't exactly have permission to do this. We kind of brought all the materials in at night, sneakily up the stairs, big sort of loads of timber and tools and all sorts of stuff. And when we were constructing the set, it was summer in LA, and it was quite hot, as it does get there. And because of the sound involved in construction, we weren't actually able to open any of the windows or doors. So it was really quite hot, and we were working away, sawing and cutting and building. So, however, one night when I was spraying the entire set black, it just became so overwhelming, the cloud of paint dust, that I actually had trouble breathing and lost vision partially, just due to the smog of paint dust.
Every single piece was used.
So this is a spaceship set built for how much?
$723.
That's pretty good.
Less labour. There will be no gaffer tape as major prop items in this film.
Unlike the last film.
Emmett and Blake were really the two kingpins in the whole film. They were the ones who pretty much did all the work. But, the results really were, I guess, a testament to their hard work and my supervision.
Day 9 of set construction. What appears to be our final day on this wonderful little set that we've built. We should have some nice shots of it very soon in its completed form. It's been a labour of love, blood, sweat, and tears.
Who cried?
When you dropped the beam on my head, I almost cried.
I guess without them, the film just wouldn't never have been even close to being as good. These guys saved my ass a couple of times over the years, and again on this film. The two of these guys together are like an army of 100. I was pretty proud of them and pretty thankful.
And you walk in, and it's unbelievable how it transformed into these four walls into a real live space cabin. I mean, it was really remarkable that when you walked in, you really looked at it, and it was just, how did these guys do this? It was really phenomenal. It just felt real. It was perfect.
Be clever any way you can about your sets. If you can build sets in a garage, build it in a garage. If you've got some space to do it, do it. If you've got a friend who's got a warehouse, say, can I build a set there? Building sets is not that hard. But if you're building something that's a bedroom, you may as well use a real bedroom. If you've got to build something that's a spaceship cockpit or this or that, something, you know, very specific, it's good to actually try to build this yourself if you can. Just be clever with wood. I'm the worst person in the world to, you know, to do anything with wood. Find friends who can build shit and say, look, can you help me? Find friends who own tools and say, look, I'm doing this for blah, blah, blah. If you say to somebody, I've got to go build a movie set, most people say, yeah, I'll help you. Or you say, I've got to build a spaceship. They'll say, I want to help you because it's kind of cool. You know, figure out your sets and be clever about it. And then, as I said, rewrite your script accordingly. It's like, okay, well, I know if I build this set, I can then, you know, change this scene and this scene and this scene and put it in that set as well. Juggle your sets and your locations around so it's always easy and it's always convenient.
Air director?
Yes, sir.
How far are you bringing me up from? Like back here?
Yeah. And action.
Set here on the Laurel Canyon sound stages, the ship, it feels real. It's just gonna look amazing on film.
It was big, and you were like, wow, things are really happening. And we got to do some fun shots there, and the lighting got really interesting. And we had a lot of smoke that we had a lot of fun with.
Hey, Blue, I got a surprise for you. Ow! Oh, fuck! Ah.
Hands off, lady.
I'm a fucking robot! And Mossy, our DP, was blowing smoke, and we had a lot of jokes made out of that. They even transformed those sets because they were very raw. And these guys came in and just took them apart and just really made it believable. It went by so fast. We were just all enjoying ourselves so much.
This section, we're really going to talk about your personality, your person, who you are. I'm going to paint a picture of, this is not me, by the way, but I'm going to pretend I'm somebody. You know, I might be a guy who, you know, maybe never had a girlfriend much, and then he, you know, always got jilted by the hot chicks at school, and then, you know, one day he got a girlfriend he really liked, and she cheated on him, and you've got this little anger inside, and, you know, you don't trust good-looking women, and you know, you might be a little paranoid about this, and you might be terrified of, you know, people who, you know, want to rip you off and everything else, you know, and you might have all these little fears inside you of this and that. Whatever baggage you have, don't bring it to set. Whatever type of person you are, prepare a personality for yourself that's not maybe who you are sometimes. There's good reasons for this. When you're under stress and everything else, the secret fears and the pains and the problems you have inside are going to explode and come out in ways you never expected, and it will always come out under stress. Tell yourself at the start of every day, I'm a producer now. I'm going to be this and this and this. And come on set, professional. You know, don't have any agendas. If somebody's got a problem, sit there and listen to them. Be friendly to everybody. That one little small person in the corner could be, you know, could be your greatest ally. You know, like I said, that person over there might be the person who could throw you in jail or help you out, depending on which way it works. Be nice to everybody. Be super polite. Be honest with everybody. Be direct with anybody. If you say, I'm going to pay you on this day, pay them on that day. Be a man of your word, or a woman of your word, or a person of good, you know, good character. Be always positive. Be always happy. Don't get drunk at the end of the day. Don't encourage people to be crazy. If people might make a joke on set, it's okay. Keep people moving. The thing about being doing these films at this sort of price is time is money. So you're managing your time. So you got to be on the set that, okay, Let's keep people moving. You're going to have an energy about you that is fast. You're going to say, okay, hi everybody, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to it. Set the pace by how you speak. Be, be on the ball. Be fast, be precise, be clever, be quick. Be everything you can be to motivate people. Once you start moving and set people in motion, they're going to get up upon your mood. They're going to pick up on your mood and carry on with you. You're running a race every day. You're not making art. You're racing to the finish line. You're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. Yes, there is art involved and everything else, but you are also running and pacing yourself. A good director is always on time and on budget. Well, he should be. I mean, unless there's some unforeseen things. He's always on time and on budget. Don't say, yes, I believe sticking to budget is important. Be on budget. Be on time. Check your schedule every part of the day. But it's about, somebody comes to you with a problem. You say, thank you for telling me that problem. I understand what you're saying. Okay, I'll look into it, And then if you got time, look into it, of course. But always listen to people. But say, okay, sorry, I'm sorry to be interrupted, but I don't have time right now. We have to do this. Can we talk about this in 20 minutes and then come back to them in 20 minutes time? Be diplomatic. Be very well spoken. Be very clear. Be very courteous. But be very firm with people. You'll be respected if you're firm and courteous and nice. You won't be respected if you sit there all day and listen to some twit who's going to tell you about, how movies are made and go on for like 3 hours while everyone else is standing around waiting. Do not sit there and entertain this person's dribble for like 3 hours. Say, look, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're really under, hard times right now. I want to listen to what you have to say, but can you just give me some time to do this and blah, blah, blah. Be precise with people. Don't let people get bogged down. Everybody wants your ear. Everybody wants to talk to you. Say, yes, you're right. Good. Okay. But learn to take feedback here, there, and everywhere. Write everything down. Take notes. Remind yourself. Always write reminders for yourself. Be a super organized person, and people will respect you, and they'll want to work with you. And make every day a great day and a fun day. If there's arguments on set, say, hey guys, can we take it outside or blah blah blah. Don't allow people to get bogged down in tangents and ideas and stuff. Say, okay, look, that's good, but can we keep moving, please? And then always give compliments to people if they're honest compliments. Don't just make them up. Always find people say, wow, you did a really good job today. Thank you so much. Thank everyone at the end of the day. Keep it positive. Try and finish on time. That's really important. We'll go into that later on, in the other segments. But be a people person. It may not be who you really are, but you have to play act for a couple of weeks to make everyone happy. And, after the first week or the first 2 weeks, keep in that mode. Stay as you are. Be a beacon. You are the person they're all going to turn to when times are tough. And they're going to look to and say, you are the we need you, okay? And when shitty things are happening, they're going to turn to you and bitch to you. So always be, no matter what. They throw shit at you, say, yes, you're right. Be calm always. Don't get angry at people. It's really important, even though you want to rip their heads off and tell them they're assholes or whatever. Just say, look, I'm sorry. When you're sacking people, even don't call them an asshole. Say, look, please, I'm sorry, it's not working out. We're having problems and blah, blah, blah. I think it's best that you leave. And that's it. Always be nice. Never burn your bridges. Don't make enemies. I mean, these are all simple things, and it's nice to hear this, but remember this on your day of shooting. Develop a producer personality. It may not be who you are, but you will get things done in a better way. Always be polite. Never demand. Always ask. Think of yourself as kind of a, very polite British person or something like Hugh Grant or something. Would it be so kind if I could do blah 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 blah? Rather than say I want you to do this and this and this and this. Don't order people. Don't be an asshole. Be polite.
I guess the most striking thing for me walking into the interview was just seeing Neil there in his full rock star glory. And I was thinking, this is pretty much the coolest guy I've ever seen in a casting situation. Most casting directors are not exactly fashionable, so it was kind of a shock, but it was a pleasant surprise when I walked into.
He's actually a really good director. There's a couple of days that there were scenes that I felt like I understood, and just a little tidbit of information that he gave to me, I felt like I grew. Because you're supposed to enjoy the process when you're doing this. And this has been the most fun that I've had out of, since I've been back, like 26 films.
He is a dream director. He really understands the actor. He knows how to communicate to the actor. He knows exactly the perfect balance of what to say and how to let the actor still have, you know, some sort of creative control.
True story, best crew I've ever worked with, best director I've ever worked with. In fact, I'm going to kiss everybody on the mouth when I leave this project.
I really did traverse galaxies, really, because working with him, you don't need a spaceship.
I've been on many, many, many sets, and Neil really knows how to just run it. Everybody here is so happy to be here, and he's just a joy to work with.
Neil is great to work with because he's so enthusiastic about what he's doing. It's obvious that he's having a great time, and he just encourages you to have a great time.
It's the best experience, and I hope we get to work together again. It's been fantastic. And the great thing about working with Neil is he knows when to direct and when to pull back and let things just create. And the good thing is he's letting me like improv a little bit here and there. In fact, he encourages it.
Very, very talented, and seems to know exactly what he wants and has a clear vision of what it is that he wants. And I'm really, I feel fortunate to be working with him.
Neil is amazing to work with for a few reasons. I worked with a lot of directors, and the thing about Neil is he gets both aspects of, a lot of directors are very technical, but maybe not so savvy when it comes to the acting craft itself. Some directors come from an acting background, and they don't always know what they want as far as getting a shot, and Neil knows it all. He's extremely multi-talented himself, and he's very generous to the actors as well, in that he understands what it is to try and find those moments on camera, and he guides, he gets what he wants without pulling you out of the moment. He's very, very good at that. I think he has a huge. I mean, I know he's done a lot of directing, but he's only begun to do what he's capable of. He's actually amazing on set.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you just a few simple things. It was fun and it was free. Neil didn't bog you down with directing you or over-directing you. He gave you such a freedom to allow you to explore whatever it is you wanted to explore. And then together, we all shaped it. And it was really quite phenomenal how that happened. So it was like magic.
There was the whole shooting day where he wore no pants, which was odd. He didn't look bad in a little skirt, but listen, he's a creative guy and he wants to do things his way. That's all right.
This film was made with the belief that good filmmaking is made from the heart, and I hope people can see the difference between a film like this and some of the other low-budget science fiction films that are just done for money. This wasn't done for money. This was done because we wanted to make something that was special. I guess I wanted to make the type of film that I want to see, and that often is not made. Science fiction is very much an evolving subject, and I like to see things in outer space. I like to see people relating to each other and having adventures, and I like to see where humanity is going. So we took a lot of risks and tried to do something a little different. If you watch this film a second time, will it teach you something? People get a lot out of the movie when they watch it a second and third time. That's what I like about this movie. It's more. There's more layers to this film than what it appears to be. It's not a shoot 'em up type movie. It's not a cop in space who's trying to hunt the killer on the spaceship.
Humanity's end. Extinction is inevitable.
You've somehow got your money, got your actors and crew in place, and the first day of the shoot comes up. First day of the shoot is always a little nervous for everybody because everyone's feeling their way, and essentially what you are is a family coming together for the first time, and you're trying to feel people out. So as yourself, as the producer and or director, whichever it is you are, you have come on board, and this is the point where you've really got to show your your producer's face, as we discussed earlier. So you basically come in and immediately set the tone. You know, take control of the situation, barge in, say, here we are, blah, blah, blah. You know, get people started working immediately. The moment they come on set, you know, let them settle for a moment, get them working immediately, assign tasks to people. It's all about speed and pace, you know. Once you're shooting, everything can go nicely, but you've got to imagine you're running a race, and getting to the finish line is the most important part of the race. And you know, as I said before, we are dealing with art and everything else, but there also is time, and time is money, and time is everything. So your first day of the shoot, I always choose things that are easy to do on the first day to make everyone feel like, wow, that was simple, let's, you know, move ahead. So choose all the simple stuff, especially the first shot of the day should be something simple. Try and have everything prepared so well for the first shot of the day so that, you know, you're really starting on a good foot. And once you've set that tone, everybody is going to be falling into place. The moment it becomes a slow, lazy, lethargic set, it affects everybody, you know, and you get this kind of attitude that people can slack off and everything. If you keep people moving the whole time, keep them working, and then finish on time, that's a good thing. So how can you really have one of these days where you're finishing on time every day? Well, as I said, it comes back to the scheduling. As I discussed earlier, on your schedule, you're going to have things like, you know, some days you're going to shoot 8 pages of script, some days you're going to shoot 6, some days you may even do 3, or it depends, and some days 12. It'll depend on the action and how well you schedule everything as to how well that goes. But if you're directing or producing, just keep an eye on things and say, break it down and say, okay, we've got from 10 o'clock until 12 o'clock to shoot these scenes. We've got from 12, you got a break for lunch, you know, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock to shoot this, and 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock to shoot this, and 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock to shoot this. Always last hour is a big rush. So you want to really schedule that in tightly and look at exactly to the minute how it's working. You know, that's how you pace yourself. So you look at basically the entire, okay, so you have to do a scene in a prison, and you've got 3 people standing around talking, and then somebody gets up and shoots the guard and escapes. So you think to yourself, how am I going to do this? The way I would approach that scene, for example, as a director, or even as a producer who's sacked his director, you know, you may have to jump in sometimes. You think to yourself, okay, let's look at the scene on paper and see how it works out. So the actors, just get into the actors and say, look, I'm not going to give you any direction. Let's just run the scene and see how it works with you guys doing it your way, just to see what they give you, because sometimes they can be a little clever, sometimes it can be a complete pile of shit. But you have to just let them do their own way first, just to get a feel for it. And as you're doing it, you can just pretend you're the camera and say, okay, where I'm going to shoot this from. Let the actors do it. Then I'll say, okay, try it this way, rehearse 2 or 3 times, you know, and just keep it at it quickly. Don't fumble about over-directing and saying, well, you know, this person's feeling this, and the reason they feel this is because of this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. When all you want to say is, do it sadder. You know, sometimes that's a better way to do. If you want to talk about character and everything else, do this before you shoot. Don't turn up on the day and say, we're going to have these big philosophical discussions about what the person's feeling, what they went through in their childhood. Have all this bullshit, and I mean bullshit in a good sense, but have all this bullshit put out the way earlier on, so that when you're on set, they already know who the character is. Don't waste time when everyone's sitting around having discussions about somebody's past, you know, baggage, character-wise. It's really, you're there to get the thing done quickly now. You've prepared as much as possible. So your preparation is important. You know, it comes back to the thing, do you rehearse or not? And I've heard two different sides to this whole discussion. Sometimes rehearsals help, because it helps the actors get to know the character, and sometimes it doesn't mean anything, because sometimes they over-rehearse and then they overanalyze stuff and they end up performing really terribly after you've rehearsed it a few times. So I don't know what the secrets are. Really, you know, you got to figure out what works best for you. I used to rehearse a lot. Now I just work on character, and I don't rehearse much at all, because I feel once you know, maybe a couple of scenes you'll work out accordingly, but once you've done those key scenes, they'll drop in a character and they'll be able to nail it for you anyway if they're good actors. So just be careful of over rehearsing and overacting and over analyzing things. Get it down. The story is there, and the story and the characters should be within the words themselves. So the actors don't need to overact and emote too much to make the scene happen. The story drives you forward, not the characterization and the acting. That stuff is there to help insulate and to enhance the story. But the acting is not the story. So just beware of actors who want to bog down in that stuff. Keep them moving fast. Okay, so what you do, you start the scene, shoot everything as a big wide shot, as wide a lens as you possibly have. If you've got a camera crane or some sort of mechanical thing, that's great too. A little bit of movement on the wide shot. Yeah, I had a camera crane in Alien Armageddon. I bought it. I paid, $10,000 for the thing. And I realized that I'll be using this piece of equipment time and time again. Camera bodies I buy and sell. Camera cranes and, lights stay forever. So anyway, do the wide shot and just watch, just see what comes in there and say, yeah, okay, that was good, but you made a lot. And just look at how people are walking and stuff. Sometimes shoot the rehearsals if you have to. If you're shooting on card systems, you got the hard drive space, do it. Shoot everything as much as possible. See what the people give you. Then, look at what they're doing. Say, okay, well, let's polish this. Maybe shoot another wide shot again. See how it works, and then they got it right. Good. Punch in for the close-ups. Once they get all the movements right and everything else, you can go in for a close-up. And now a close-up could be like a mid-shot from here, like this, mid-shot to close-up, this type of thing. Do all the individual shots of everybody. Get them out the way. Cover every single person. Run the scene in its entirety. Don't go line by line. Run the entire scene in its entirety from this angle of this person. The entire scene from this person from, this angle. The entire scene of every person's perspective. Bang, 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 bang. Over and over again, the scene flows and flows and flows. Then do the close-ups. Like maybe there's a little cutaway of somebody picking up a rock or pulling out a gun or whatever it is. There might be an alternate mid-wide shot to do from the rear of the building. Do those as well. Just constantly cover the scene as many times as you can from all those angles as possible, and just keep it going, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Don't overanalyze. Don't force yourself to get into the line-by-line bullshit, because then you start to lose the flow and the character of everything. Do the entire scenes up until a point where you run out of time. You say, okay, I've got the coverage. Now let's move on to the next scene. Okay, it's all about coverage. Yes, there's some art involved in it. That comes later if you've got the time. Then you got that scene done. Okay, you've done a couple of action scenes, this and that, everything else. Same sort of shit. Start with the wide, do all the wide shots first from this side, do the wide shots from the other side, medium shots from side one, medium shots from side two, close-ups from side one, close-ups from side two. That's fairly basic. Cutaways are important. Little close-ups of something, little eye shots or something, inanimate objects, as many little cutaways as you can possibly get in within the time frame. What that helps you to do is later in the editing process, if you've got a continuity problem, two people are talking, one person's touching their eye, the next shot they're not. If you can cut away to, the rock on the ground that the person's playing with their fingers, you can cut back. All of a sudden, you can cover up continuity mistakes. It's all about coverage. It's important to get as many little bits of angles as possible. If, of course, you start running out of time, and again, I can show you the scenes in Alien Armageddon where this happened, and the actors love this sometimes when it happens too, so it's kind of cool. So you got three people talking. It works well with the three shot. Just do a locked off shot of the three people, as tight as possible, but in a group talking. And I had a little camera move on there, a little camera crane move. It was one take. Well, it wasn't one take. We did 3 takes as a wide. That's it. That's all we had time for. But you know what? We got it in the can. It was a nice tight shot. I didn't get to cut away too much to anything. I tried to do a couple of little cutaways. Rather than going for close-ups and close-ups and close-ups, I just went from the wide shot to a couple of really tight cutaways that would solve all my continuity problems. And that's what I had to do to get the thing done on time and on budget. You want to be finishing on time every day, and I'll tell you why. Because this is a job. And if you do a job where you're working 18, 20 hours a day, you're going to hate the job, no matter how much fun it is. If you're doing a job and you finish every day on time or thereabouts, you're going to be happy to turn up the work the next day. You're going to give a better result. If everyone's working really, really hard, they don't want to be working till late every day. I try to train everybody. It's like, come on, let's move fast. Everyone wants to go home. everybody wants to go home on time, so let's move as fast as we can in between everything so we can go home on time. Let's not sit around at lunchtime and talk and gossip and talk, and do this and that. Let's have a lunch quickly and then move on. Because, once you start getting into that lunch mode of talking and you start gossiping and everyone starts texting and everything else, you're lost. Have lunch as quickly as possible so you move on, and give them the incentive that you will go home early if you keep the pace up. People like that, The other thing is too, cell phones on set. Big problem, okay? The rule is the phones are turned off until lunchtime. You can check your messages and everything else. Do not turn your phone on during the shoot. Explain to people, your phone near a microphone will cause interference and stuff. And make sure you get your sound guy on side and saying, look, dude, can you please tell, make sure everybody keeps the phones off as well. He can come on board and say, well, and say, yes, it's causing interferences. And when it comes from him, everyone says, oh my God, this is going to destroy the sound of the film. I better turn my phone off. And, maybe have him make sure, be clever about, everyone having the phones off after lunch as well. Have him, give him that responsibility to say, can you please make sure that everyone turns their phones off as well? Because people want to sit there and text and talk about their next job. Who gives a fuck? You're here working, don't worry about that. Make sure the phones are off, and say time and time again, turn the phones off. It doesn't matter who you are. I'm going to tell you a little story about, I'm not going to name him, but he was an actor who loved to act. And yeah, he had some acting ability. I saw his reel, and I saw he'd done a horror movie, and it was like, shit, that's a movie I've heard of. I won't, use the real name of the movie, but it was like, wow, he was in that movie. He must be good. Oh my God, I've got to get this guy. I met him. He was just kind of not connecting with me, kind of a little odd, and a little strange. And I thought, well, okay, maybe he's just a crazy actor, but everyone says he's good, so he must be good. His reel looks good. He's been in that famous movie, so I can use him on the DVD box to say he's been in that famous horror film. Turns out he wasn't in that famous horror film. I hadn't watched the film properly in the past, so I didn't realize that he was just doing an imitation scene from that film. He said he named the film and everything. He hadn't really been in that movie. He was just doing a scene from the movie as played by a famous actor. I didn't click because I didn't know the movie that well. I thought, wow, he must be good. He had the script a month before. And, he started emailing me and saying, well, I think my character should have a bit of flirtation with the young girl in the scene. And, what's the backstory of this? I think it should be that he was having sex with her and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of this guy who was maybe in his late 50s, trying to get it on with the 20-year-old girl in the scene. And he was always going on about it. It's like, dude, it's not relevant. But, I just try to humor him a bit and say, no, this is his character history. I gave him this beautiful history about who his character was via email, a month before the shoot. I didn't hear a word from him, but, assumed he was a professional and everything else. And, I just thought it was a little creepy that he kept pushing this point. I was getting the feeling he wanted to try to get laid, of course, as some people do. So I let him go off on that little tangent a bit, but said, no, it's not really appropriate, blah, 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 but, whatever, thanks for your feedback. So come the day of the shoot, the whole crew have been working together great for weeks on end, weeks. And then this guy, we're doing his whole and it was a big crux of the film, his whole scene on this day. So he turns up and he's super nervous and stuff. And could tell pretty much straight away he didn't know his lines. He brought his laptop and started, doing internet stuff while he was there. The moment he did that, I should have just sacked him on the spot, honestly, because there's no, what the fuck is all this? It's sitting there, you're there to do a job, and he's doing his stock market stuff on set. And okay, I thought, well, maybe he knows his script. We started doing the wide shot, and let's run through it. He didn't know the script. He was sitting there, and then all of a sudden his phone kept ringing during the take, and he was on his phone all the time. Meanwhile, everyone else was like, what the fuck is this guy doing? So, he was doing that. I thought maybe he's just nervous, or maybe he's a super important money person. I'll let him do it, but I know he's a good actor. Everyone said he's a great actor. Anyway, so then it came, let's start doing the scene, and he started getting into the mode. He was okay. And then all of a sudden, his phone went off again. I thought, let this guy, because he doesn't know his lines so well, I'm going to shoot his close-up last. I'll do everyone else's shots first. So we did the other actor's shots first. So while we were doing the other shots, his phone started ringing in the middle of the take. I was like, come on. And then he dropped the phone on the set, and it went all the way down to the bottom of the spaceship, and we couldn't get it out because it was kind of stuck in there. So then we had this phone ringing the whole time during the scene, and we had to keep stopping and stuff. And I mean, this guy was just giving the other actor nothing. He was giving nothing. He was just so full of his own bullshit and everything else. And then we finally got to his shot, and he kind of did it. We kind of got it. We gave him 3 takes. He finally got it okay. And it was a long scene. It was a 5-minute scene. So we got it done. We got his phone out. I should have sacked him much earlier on and got another actor. I didn't have a backstop up. I should have had a backstop, but I didn't. And, I should have just juggled him around. So the guy left the set, looked at the footage. Yeah, it was continuity problems galore. His performance was up and down and everywhere. He was not focused whatsoever. He was terrible. And then he emailed me and said, look, I know I was terrible on that day. I wouldn't be surprised. I know you're going to cut the whole scene out of the film. I expect this. He didn't turn up at the premiere or anything else. The lesson is, the guy appeared like an asshole, but I listened to everybody else and trusted, that he was really good. Trust your instincts always, and always, it happens. Something tells you this guy's a bit weird. He's always weird. The moment someone starts doing bullshit like that, they've got an ego problem. And basically what happened was he had an ego problem. He was trying to sabotage his own career by doing this, That's the sort of guy he was. And, just got to be careful. These people are self-sabotaging. There's a reasons why they are who they are, and that's good, and that's why they're good actors. But also it can destroy themselves. So this sort of shit will happen. I could have got really angry at him and yelled at him, and it would have made the whole day gone even worse. He would have gone even more crazy and ridiculous. I ran with it and said, look, I understand, let's all be nice to him. I took the other actors aside. He said, yeah, this guy's a douchebag. Well, let's just deal with him. We need him for this scene. And then, trust me, we're going to make the most of this. The scene, it's okay. Everyone complains about the scene. That nobody really liked his acting in the film. These are the learning processes you go through. And that's why I share these stories with people, is that rather than, you be perfect every time, when problems happen, this is how you have to deal with them. I put my producer's face on, we got the thing done, we got it on time, on budget that day, everyone went home. I had to fight with it in the edit room to make it better. But the thing is, the film could have gone really dangerous at that point. It was like the last day of the shoot. Everyone could have rebelled. Everyone could have got angry. People could have got pissed off. Everything could have happened. It didn't. We kept our cool. We maintained it. And everyone commented to me afterwards, we can't believe you didn't stick your fingers around this guy's throat and strangle him. We were really surprised. And everyone else said, blah, blah, blah. I'm always thinking of the end picture. You got to think of the finish line. You got to think of this and this and this. You can become angry. You can become pissed off with these people. You can let it happen, or you can just go with the flow and let it happen and try to find ways to manipulate them around and make the situation work. So embrace every bad thing that happens on set and look upon it as though it happens for a reason, because if it does happen, you've learned, and as long as you've learned from your mistakes and the problems that happen, they'll never happen again. Okay, managing your budget and your crew. This is a really important thing. If you've got lucky to have an accountant or somebody you trust who can handle the money, that's one thing. I've never ran out of money and not been able to pay anyone on set. Okay, say I have a budget of $20,000, okay? I then take all that money in cash and I make a little safe or get a little place to put it, or, assign different areas for it or different bank accounts for it. Spread the money around into different places. So then when you're dealing with the cash, I like to pay people in cash. I also like to have them sign to say they've received the cash, of course, and everything else. But the reason I like cash is that it helps you manage your money better on set, especially with a small budget. You don't want to be going over budget. So I basically look at my budget and say, okay, I've got $1,000 put aside for this actor. So I'll put that $1,000 in an envelope, write the actor's name on there, and, blah, 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 seal it up, okay? And then I have everybody's pay in cash assigned into these little envelopes and then put into a locked box, which only I can access. And don't tell anybody where the money is or anything else, just know where it is yourself. So then when it comes to paying people, like your crew or your whatever, your actors come to you, say, okay, yeah, here's your money. You don't have to worry about accounting, or you make sure you have the money in the account. You have the physical cash, you give it to them. It's in a sealed envelope. They sign off, they say thank you, that's it. The same with your crew. Everyone's very happy when you can hand them the cash. And what happens then? Okay, if all of a sudden you're halfway through the shoot and you got all your money in the bank account, and all of a sudden, oh, we need another permit for this, and it's going to cost us $1,000. You think, oh, okay, well, yeah, okay, you do that. And you kind of forget, lose track, or we need some extra food, or, you know, whatever it is. So you'll send somebody off with your credit card, they'll come back, something happens, that's fine. Then all of a sudden you've overspent. You can't pay people. If you've got the physical cash there, you can always pay people, and people are happy. That way, then you have an emergency fund envelope, and you say, okay, this is our emergency. 10% of the budget is just put aside for emergencies. You keep that envelope. And when you start to, you know, go into there for an emergency this, an emergency that, you even keep track of your emergency fund and say, well, I've only got 2 $100 notes left. Oh, shit. Okay, I better be careful about the emergencies. And, you know, it tends to say, okay, how do you solve a problem? Oh, we need a permit for this. We really should have one. Well, I'm sorry, we can't do that. If I start taking money from some actor's wage to pay for the permit, that actor's not going to get paid. So let's find a creative solution that doesn't involve money. That's how I manage my money on budget. And that's why I can always pay people on time. And people like it when you pay them on time in cash and everything else. It makes people really happy, and they respect you for that. And there's no dramas or bullshit. Checks, people get a little dodgy with the checks. Give them cash, low budget stuff. You say $100 cash every day, they're happy. Let's talk about photography on set. I always consider this something really important. And if you've got somebody with a very good quality camera, usually a photographer who's trained, who knows what they're doing, that's a good thing. Let those people come on set and take photographs. As long as you get copies every day of all the photographs, don't let them take them away and fuck with them and choose the best. Get all the raw data, all the shit, you know, that they shoot every day. Say, look, I just want to make a backup of your photos, etc., etc. Photography is really important. It's more important than the behind the scenes, and I'm going to tell you why. If you have to do a behind the scenes documentary and you've only got photographs, you can still make it work. You do interviews and you show photographs. That works nice. You know, if you've got behind the scenes video and no photographs, well, when you do your publicity and everything else, it's very hard to pull the video from the stills from the video. So I would always choose a photographer to come on set. If you can't afford them on set every day, choose a photographer who can only come on certain days. Say, look, just go crazy. I want scenes from the film. I want scenes behind the scenes. I want this and that. And tell them what you want. Make sure you have scenes that, you know, as though you're the camera, you know, as though it's the actual movie, a photograph of the movie as it goes down, the drama as it goes down, the explosions, blah, 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 whatever it is. Make sure he's there for those moments. And then make sure that he also shoots some behind the scenes as well, because it's a good, you know, memory to have. If you're really stuck and you can't afford a photographer and you're shooting on a high enough resolution, like a RED camera, you can always grab frames from it later and it looks okay, it looks pretty good. You have to decide what you want to do and where you want to spend the money, but I love having a photographer on set. I found that a really good thing. On Alien Armageddon, our photographer then took all the photographs that he took. By the way, he worked on the set for free. First time, only time he'll ever do that. But he then took all those photographs and put it into a nice little book as a thank you for all the crew and the cast. These people, of course, would have to pay for the book. You know, it's like $40 or $50, but it's good the photographer can make a little bit of money back for himself. That's the deal I did with that, but it was a real nice keepsake for the movie and made it kind of more special for people. This is a self-publishing thing. You know, guys can figure that out yourself if you want to do it. Because my photographer worked for free, I felt that he should make some money back later on doing that, and it worked in really good. So by this point, you've probably got your film in the can. I expect that you've all done your backups, and this is really important. Backups are vital, obviously. And make sure your footage is not all stored in the same location. You have one hard drive here, maybe one hard drive is at your parents' house or your best friend's house, or, you know, in a storage place where it's cool and dry and everything else. Make sure you have all your footage and everything's backed up. So now you have a bunch of hard drives or tapes, but I assume it's going to be hard drives. You know, depends on how you've shot it. And then you're thinking, what do I do now? I've got to put all this shit together. Okay, so you got a couple of choices here. I've edited for years, and I started editing on film, and then 2-inch tape, 1-inch tape, Betacam, SP, digital Betacam, non-linear DVC Pro, blah, 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 blah. I've tried every different editing format and style and way of doing it. So I've got a clue about editing, I'll be honest. How did someone teach, 20 years of editing? It's not an easy thing to do. Thankfully, we're in a great time where it's all computer-based. The thing I'll probably recommend you do is get a Macintosh, get a piece of editing software like Final Cut Pro or even iMovie if you have to, and don't cringe when you hear that term, Adobe Premiere or an Avid. Some piece of software that you can have access to or you feel comfortable with that you can edit with. I would stick to the most popular ones because, you know, sometimes these kind of cheap, freaky ones, you know, that kind of don't seem to be so common, have inherent problems. However, that being said, editing is editing, and it should be very basic. Editing is all about cuts, occasionally dissolves and fades to black, and that's it. Editing is not about having special effects and being able to do this page peel or turn or rotation or any other pieces of bullshit. It's all about cuts, sometimes dissolves, occasionally fades to black, fade to black, fade up, black. If you can't just do cuts and dissolves, you haven't got a very good system, obviously. So your choice is to find somebody who's an editor, who wants to cut their teeth at cutting a feature film, or learning it yourself. How do you learn this yourself? Again, go on the internet, go on YouTube, places like Creative Cow. These are places where you can learn basic editing techniques and everything else. Yes, you will need some technical advice somewhere along the way, you know, if you are doing sort of, you know, a movie that you want to put out in the cinema at some point. But what you could do is basically get, you know, a Macintosh of your own, the hard drives, learn how to convert the footage, get it into the system, start cutting with it, do a basic cut on it. If you can't afford an editor the whole time, say to the editor, look, I would like to have you for the entire movie. I can't afford you. So how about I have you come in and do the final polish for me? He'll say, yeah, that'll be okay. And you say to him, well, what format are you cutting on? He'll say Avid or Final Cut Pro or Premiere or something. And you'll say, great. So you get the same matching software and you make sure you have the same version and everything else. And you know, liaise with him. He'll probably help you out a little bit with that. You start your basic cut. What you'll do is divide your film into, I'm going to call them reels, because back in the days of film, you know, when you see a movie in the cinema, they would have it on 3 or 4 or 5 reels of, you know, film, and it could be like 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes long on each reel, depending on how you set it up. You want to divide your movie into 5 sections, is my guess. Maybe 3, maybe 5, depending on your computer and hard drive, but at least 3. Split it up into 3 sections, maybe 6, maybe 8, maybe 10. Cut each section separately, so that's blah, 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 blah. You know, just do it that way. The advantage of that is you're not going to tax your computer and your hard drive. And, you know, if you are still doing backups daily, and you should be backing up your editing computer every day, and all the data and the information should be backed up every single day without fail. If you're doing your backups and something happens, you're always going to be safe no matter what. But it's all about the backups in the edit process as well. So you basically line this up on a timeline. You start with your wide shot, you know, you cut in the close-ups when you need to. Because you shot it in such an organic way of, like, you know, wide shot, the whole scene is a wide shot, the whole scene is a close-up, the whole scene is a close-up, cutaways. It's very easy to cut together. You say, okay, normally you start with a wide shot, cut into the close-up of the person talking, cut into the reverse of the other person talking, back and forth, back and forth. Maybe that person, you know, does something funny in the wide shot. You might cut back to the wide shot again to give people a feeling of what's happening. You know, you're going to start learning a lot about, you know, what you should not have had done in the script, and you'll start trimming the script down and cutting out entire sentences and, you know, comments and stuff. Sometimes you'll learn that, you know, somebody can do can convey a moment in the scene with a look rather than talking about it. You'll learn so much about script writing in the edit room. You know, it pays to cut your own stuff sometimes. It really does. Any which way you can get it cut, you get it cut. Just make sure you have some senior editor person who's waiting in the wings to take over and do a final check on everything. It's really important, because, you know, he'll look at it and say, what the fuck is that? And why did you do that? That looks ridiculous, or that's a problem, that's technically ridiculous, or that looks good, you know? If you've got an editor who's working for you, invariably this is a guy who's going to be sitting in a room, usually a nerd type guy, not always, but usually. He'll be sitting in a room and he'll be in there the whole time. How do you keep your editor happy? Okay. Number one, little snacky things. No, nothing to make him fat or anything else, but little pretzels or, yogurt covered nuts or raisins or something. Always keep a little thing to keep him locked to that desk, to stop him running outside and finding food and going on a food hunt or whatever else. Little snacky things that don't bloat you up, that just keep him working, so he can eat and chew and do whatever he has to do. Always make sure he's looked after. Don't talk to him too much while he's editing. Let him just edit and let him do the talking, because he's deep in thought right now about everything. And he can really, if he's got a question, he'll ask you, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? If you've got a phone call, don't sit in the edit room and talk on the phone. Go outside, give him peace. He'll like it when you're outside. He'll sometimes like it when you leave him alone. Make sure he's doing his backups every day. Make sure you have a copy of his work every single day you take with you. What'll happen is suddenly your editor will get offered another job that pays a lot more than what you're paying him, and he'll be saying, I'm sorry, I've got to go. So he'll leave halfway through. Make sure you have a copy of all his work basically up to that point. So that way, if it ever happens, he has a dummy spit or whatever it is, it's okay. You've still got his footage. You can find another editor. Go back onto Craigslist, say, look for an editor, blah, 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 blah. I can only pay this much money. Who's around? And, keep advertising until you find the person. Always keep control of all your footage any way you can. Don't leave it in his hands and blah, blah, blah. Say, every day, this is my rule. I take the backups home with me in case you have a fire or something happens to you or the hard drive explodes. We can be sure there's a backup. And he'll agree with you anyway, but make sure you do it. Don't leave your stuff with your editor. As I said, do everything you can to keep him happy. He's going to be frustrated and pissed off that he's sitting in a chair while everybody else is having fun in the world. So try to keep his life, fabulous. Don't drag him out to dinners all the time and everything else. Just let him go home, have his life, unless he really needs to go out into a strip club or something to keep his life, make his life more exciting. But try to keep him on track, keep him healthy, keep him happy. Editors are funny people. Like I said, they get very, the younger ones often get very sexually frustrated. So it's a weird thing, especially if you're doing something with good-looking girls. You start getting obsessive and everything else. Be aware of that, Try to keep him in his element. Try to keep him like you're the person who's keeping this guy happy. Often it's a girl as well. The girls will want to have their own time out, and often the girls won't, the girl editors won't often want you, telling them what to do, and then they'll get stuck and ask you. It's weird how the mentalities work between the sexes, but, often guy editors and girl editors have their own little sets of issues and problems. But embrace them as good people, because, these people will make and break your movie. Keep them enthusiastic and say, oh, what about blah, 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 blah. Keep them excited and praise them for their work and say, that works nicely, and thank you for doing that. That's really good. Always be nice to your editors. They are your backbone. They're everything to you. They can make your actors look good. They can make you look good. They can make you look like shit. Editing styles have changed over the years. It used to be slow cuts. Now it's a lot faster. Younger people will often cut faster than older people. I think it's a little, I wouldn't say testosterone thing, but it's often an energy thing with young people. They feel they have to cut to prove themselves. Older people, older editors don't need to prove themselves with cutting. They think it's cleverer not to cut sometimes. You have to decide what the right style is for you. Watch some movies and look at the cutting. How often do they cut? And sometimes it's too much, and sometimes it's not enough. You've got to figure out where your sensibilities lies, and your artistic sensibilities lie with that. Always when you're editing, another little tip: cut the film together. Sit back and look at the thing as a whole. Don't just look at that one little scene over and over again. Look at the scene, how it works within the context of the whole movie. Sometimes that's really important. And write down and make notes. If you've got an assistant there or somebody who can help you, watch the movie and just bark orders to them. Say, too tight, tighten this scene needs to be faster, this scene needs to be slower, blah, blah, blah. Often editors edit too fast and have too much going on, and there's no pace. And this is a mistake I see a lot. There's no time to breathe. Just stop, take a breath. It's always like, cut. Let's happen. Take a breath sometimes, because then when you take a breath and let things go slow, you got somewhere to go. You can go back up again fast. But if you're always fast, when you stop, it stops. You just kind of run out of energy. Pace the editing. Pace the movie so it's up and down and builds up and builds down, and slam yourself into a scene. Be brutal. Don't be afraid to cut out scenes. If a scene doesn't work, get rid of it. Some of my favorite scenes in some of my movies have been removed because they don't work in the context. They don't work in the flow. They worked in the script. They didn't work in the final version of the movie. It's terrifying to cut out some scenes that you think should be in the movie. It's terrifying to do this. But you've got to have the balls to do it. And don't be afraid. Take a breath. Sometimes you want to sleep on it. Do it. And say, it feels better. Again, I have a saying, less is more, unless you're a whore. And what that means is, sometimes giving people less is more impressive than just giving them everything. Another thing you can be clever in the editing room, I mean, look at somebody like Quentin Tarantino who does a lot of non-linear stuff. Sometimes you want to take a scene and put it at the beginning and move the scene around here and put the scene here. Change the flow of things. Don't be afraid to experiment. It's easy to experiment in the non-linear computer-based editing world. It's hard to do it on set, but it's much easier to experiment in the edit room. So, you know, if you want to go for one of those clever story things, you can kind of make the movie happen in the edit room by pulling this and pulling that and moving this around. Don't be afraid of taking risks in the edit room, and don't be afraid to be brutal and remove things, and don't be afraid to give moments of, you know, give the film a breath in the edit room as well. It's important. It's very important. You may have to sacrifice a couple of things along the way. And by that, I mean, you know, in the edit room, you might be sacrificing a bit of tightness. If you say, okay, we've got to have this movie done in a month in the edit room, okay, that might be your deadline. Just try to stick to that deadline and say, okay, blah, 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 blah. Get a rough cut done of the film. Look at the thing as a whole. Don't polish the movie until you're sure that scene is going to stay in there, you know? Just keep watching things as a whole. Say, yeah, it doesn't work. Let's get rid of that scene. Let's not give it any more energy. Polish, polish, polish as much as you can. Give it the same polish all the way through. Of course, your opening's got to be the most exciting bit. Don't overdo it in the beginning. Don't stylize everything so much in the beginning that you've got nowhere to go at the end. Pace yourself at the same level all the way. You're running a marathon now. Okay, you still want to get to the finish line. Now you're running a marathon. Don't kill yourself for the first mile, you know, pushing really hard, and then you just waddle along for the last 10 miles. Pace yourself constantly. Polish, do a run, another run, polish, 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 until you run out of time. You hit that deadline, that's where you're at. You know, you release the film, maybe a little rougher, that's okay. Time is money. Somebody said something very wise to me once. You can spend 20% of the time getting your film to the level of 80% perfect. You can spend the last 80% of your time getting your film to that 100% point. You got to decide if that last 20% of polish is worthwhile, worth, you know, most of your time. The devil's in the details. The devil is in the polishing of the film and making it good. If you've got the time, polish it. Don't kill yourself making it too perfect if you're trying to get the movie out the door on time. You know, if you knew that disaster movies were hot in 2009 and it took you till 2011 to do the movie, and all of a sudden disaster movies in 2011 are not so cool, you're not looking so special at this point. You're not looking clever about it. And yeah, sure, you got a greatly polished film, but nobody wants to buy a disaster movie in 2011 because they've been done to death, and we're tired of those sort of movies. So with that mentality in mind, you want to get the film out the door and sold. And if you happen to hit the market at the right time, like I said, with the right type of movie, even if it's a little bit of a pile of shit, the film's still going to sell and you're going to make your money back. And that means you can make some money back and make another movie. And maybe next time you can make a better film. You know, don't kill yourself making your first film the greatest work of art. I mean, you know, you can do. That's a different frame of mind. But if you get the film done and in the can and released, that's important, because then you can make a better film every time. The one thing about my movies is they get better and better and better. But you know, I haven't always put the effort in to make the film 100% perfect, because I know it's got to hit the market at the right time. And, you know, that's a whole thing about art versus money, which I don't want to get into, but I'm trying to explain to you why I did my film so quickly and how I did it. While I was doing the editing, I started doing the marketing of the film as well, and the early stage of marketing. So, you know, I'll do a bit of editing, I'll take a break from that, do a bit of, you know, online marketing, and did a movie trailer. That's another thing. While you're cutting the film, make sure you get a trailer done early. At least it's a teaser trailer, just to get people excited, because then you start to build up a bit of, you know, excitement and stuff. And, you know, people start looking around and looking online and saying, oh, this movie's coming out, this might be cool. And it can also help you gauge, how people are responding to your early trailer. Might let people gauge what they're interested in. They might say, well, this is kind of cool, but that stuff with that chick doesn't look very good. And you might say, well, maybe I should steer away from that sort of stuff or steer towards that sort of thing. It allows you to see what's important and how people react. Look at what they throw the thing on YouTube. Just watch people's reactions. Maybe do 2 different versions. See what people are reacting to. Do this while you're editing. It just helps you keep a clear head. You can get tunnel vision so much if you're locked in a room editing. Do anything you can to sort of keep yourself out there. And for goodness sakes, once a week, sit down and watch the whole cut as a whole and just watch it and then make notes. Don't overwatch the whole movie. But take a breath, sit down, watch it fresh, and you'll learn so much by doing that. It's so important to watch the thing as a whole over and over again, but after you've distanced yourself from it. It'll always give you a fresh perspective and show you where the faults are. Some scenes work great by themselves, but when they're back together with some other things, they have no flow. That's more the art of editing, and hopefully your editor can help you with that. But that's what I do to sort of keep things, moving and paced in a nice way. Because I've done a lot of music videos, I've got a good understanding of music, and that really helps a lot. While you're editing as well, it's a good time to try to find composers. I mean, if you can find them earlier, that's good. There's 2 types of music that you can put into a movie. One type is obviously the soundtrack, the background music and everything else. The other stuff is sometimes you want a rock song or a cool pop song or something in there to sort of help spark things up and make it modern and cool. I've gone both routes. I've done a lot of musicians' songs and stuff. So sometimes you want to get that pop song a little early because you want to cut, some scenes to that music. There might be something you need to do. You might want to do a little montage, and it's got to be timed to the music. So sometimes you want to have that pop music early. By pop music, I just mean anything that's, commercial. And that could be heavy metal, it can be gothic music, it can be dance music, it can be, synthetic rock music, or who knows what music you're going to put in there. How do you find those sort of bands? Well, MySpace is the only good thing about MySpace is trying to find bands who are unsigned. Don't have something composed for the movie unless you know somebody who can do it for free. Go approach bands who are, maybe not signed, but are climbing the ladder and have a good reputation, and maybe already have their demos recorded and they sound pretty good. Listen to their music and say, hey, buddy, can I use your music in my movie? 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes for free. Just say, look, I need you to sign the rights off to this, that I can use it in conjunction with this movie as much as possible. And what do they get for this? Well, they get to tell their friends that their music is in a movie, number 1. Number 2, they might get a music video out of this, because they might say at the end, can we have some of the footage so we can make our own music video? And that could be cool as well. It's all about cross-promotion. You promote them, they promote you. You really shouldn't be paying money for music for a band that's unsigned or unimportant, because you're both trying to help each other. You should be paying music for money if you want a famous song or a cover song or whatever. That's a different thing, and I'm not going to get into that sort of stuff, because I had a friend of mine who had he did a movie. It was all about music, and it was all about music like AC/DC and this and that and all these famous songs, and he could not get the rights to the songs and put in the movie. So what he got cover songs done, and he got the publishing permission and stuff. He had a lot of paperwork to do that. Of course, the film is pretty incredible now, but it was a lot of work for him to secure the rights to those songs. It took him over a year sometimes just to get the right to do a cover version of that song to be in the movie. It took a long time. And of course, all these publishers, they just want to suck money from you. They don't give a fuck about the actual film itself. They just want money. So yeah, try to go for stuff and make sure you have the rights to use it. Make sure before you even take the song from them, say, I need to have the rights to this, and I need to have your publishing permission and everything else. I need you to sign off your rights to this movie so I can use it in all territories. And then, you can do a deal with them that, okay, maybe there's some sort of back-end deal. I don't know. That's something for you and them to talk about. But I think most people are just happy to let the music go, be put into a film. Of course, you cannot take that music and use it anywhere else. You don't have the right to do that, but it just means in conjunction with that movie, you have that song in there. And that's a negotiation technique. And of course, if a band is going to be too difficult on that, just move on to another band. There's 1,000 songs out there by 1 million bands that will always be appropriate for your film. So don't kill yourself on music. Now, whether to use a composer or not, I've used composers in a couple of films. I've done the music in a couple of my movies as well. I don't recommend being your own composer unless you've got some sort of talent. It's kind of fun to do, though, I have to say. Decide if you can afford a composer or not. Try to look for somebody who's up and coming. It's great because you can get a full orchestra sounding soundtrack quite easily, with samples now, compared to the old days where it just sounded like cheesy keyboards and stuff. These days you can get a nice orchestral sounding movie that sounds like Lord of the Rings for a few $1,000s, and that's okay. I still like the real orchestra sound. I like physical people making music. It's something that is always a good thing, but you have to get what you can get your hands on. A couple of ways around that is to you can find some copyright free music or music that's basically free to use in a movie, and you have to go and read all the fine print, but do a search online for library music, and then see if it's copyright free. See if this movie can be used. If you buy this music, do you own it and have the rights to put it in your movie or not? Read the fine print. There are music libraries out there you can buy where you can use this music over and over and you don't have to pay a fee. So often the music is not very good, but sometimes it is. And you have to decide what type of music it's going to be. But let's say once you figure out how you're going about your music, it's a very important point. And music does help lift the movie up and give it some mood and everything else. And it can change the timing of the film. So when you're cutting the film, back to cutting, when you're cutting the movie, you say, I know I'm going to have music here and there's going to be a swell of the music at this point. You've got to kind of imagine it in your head, this is what's going to happen. So then you might just drag the scene out at the end a little bit longer because you know the music's going to come and go. Your composer can then time it accordingly. If you're using, copyright-free library music, you can start throwing the music in early and seeing how it times in. It's something it's kind of like a patchwork quilt. You put a bit of music in, you time it, you cut it, you change it. Expect that once you've got the music in, it will change the edit and change the feeling of how you've cut the film. So allow yourself a bit of polish time after the music's gone in if you've got that luxury. Sometimes you can have too much music in a movie and it kind of dominates them. If you ever watch some of the 80s telly movies or, a lot of German films do this, make this mistake. They put too much music in. They always have music going everywhere. Always. They have this cacophony of music going in every single scene. I think that's ridiculous, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes if a scene's funny, you don't need music to tell you it's funny. You don't need this music in the background saying this is a funny scene. It's a funny scene whether there's music there or not. The music is there then to tell people, now you have to feel this is a funny scene because it's got funny music. That's a mistake a lot of composers make. Their music shouldn't be telling you what to think. Their music should be enhancing the scene. And that's always a mistake I see in a lot of movies. Music should be used in the right place at the right time. It should be minimalistic. It should be used precisely where it should be. If the music is telling you what's going on in the scene, then you've got a problem. You've got a problem either with the composer or the director or the editor or the acting or something. But that music should not be telling you what is going on. Music shouldn't be saying, now you have to laugh. Shouldn't do that sort of thing in a movie. It's it's not what it's about. That was good, and maybe back in the 80s occasionally, or the 70s, that sort of thing was kind of cool. It kind of goes back to that vaudevillian style of performance. Where somebody will tell a joke and you hear that type of thing. Composers still do that a lot, and they shouldn't be doing this. So just be aware of your composer. You may have to break his heart and say, sorry, dude, I can't use the music there. I just decided not to have music in there. Yeah, he'll be pissy at you, but so what? Maybe one day he'll look back and say, yeah, that guy was right. I should have listened. The cool thing was one of my favorite people in the world, Uta Ehrenberg. She basically brought in her ex-husband, Neddy John Cross. For those who don't know who Neddy John Cross is, he's one of the big rock stars from Europe. Neddy's talent comes from when he was young. I think it was instilled into him as a 6-year-old boy. His parents, I think, were forcing him to make music. His mother and father were just into the classical world, and from this point, you know, he stepped out towards the rock and the heavy metal side of things, but, you know, his roots are always classic. And so it was great that I could sort of bring him this project, and it basically brings him back to his childhood, I think, a little bit.
Bin mit 7, habe angefangen Klavier zu spielen, habe 10 Jahre Musikschule. Meine Mutter ist Opernsängerin. Ich bin aufgewachsen in so einer Familie, die klassische Musik macht eigentlich. Und für mich ist das eigentlich nicht schwer, sowas zu machen, auch wenn es schwer klingt.
I first met Neddy, and it was strange. The first time I met him, it was we just connected in a second. And I don't connect with many people. I was a big fan of his music, actually. It was more, you know, hard rock, sort of heavy metal stuff, and then sometimes it was more like the big Disney music and stuff. But it was always commercial music with singing and stuff you hear on the radio. And he sort of, not pushed me, but he kind of kept saying, you know, I should do the music for your movie. And Uta, his ex-wife, who's his manager, she kept saying, oh no, he would be perfect. And I thought, he does rock music, why should he do this?
Ute Ehrenberg hat, auch meine Managerin, hat mir das sehr gut vermittelt. Das ist das Resultat von dem.
And then it just came to the point, she says, oh, you know, really, just try him. I said, okay, I'll try him. We'll see what we get. And, you know, I've worked with some really good composers on my other films, but my God.
Es ist eine perfekte Entscheidung. Ich bin sehr glücklich, mit Neil Johnson zusammenzuarbeiten. Es macht mir einen riesengroßen Spaß. Es ist sehr professionell, die Arbeit. Und ja, das Gefühl ist bei mir total auf einem hohen Level und bin sehr glücklich. Also ich gebe auch alles. Es ist eine gute Chemie, mit ihm zusammenzuarbeiten.
I had expectations maybe of about this level, but in reality it was here.
Too much, ja. Zu viel eigentlich. Ich wollte in den Film eigentlich viele verschiedene Parts einbringen, musikalische Parts einbringen. Ich wollte eigentlich eine Tiefe drin haben, eine sehr, sehr, sehr weite Tiefe. Da auch der Film sehr, sehr viel Tragik hat. Der Film hat eine sehr große Weite zwecks wegen dem Universum, logischerweise. Es sind Kampfszenen, Kriegsszenen, es sind Todesszenen und Liebesszenen. Also die Musik für den Film zu machen, war ein Riesenanreiz für mich, da wirklich alles drin ist in dem Film. Und das ist perfekt eigentlich für einen guten Komponisten oder für einen Komponisten, der sowas machen will.
The problem I had was when he did the music, the film visually looked a certain way, and he did the music in a special way, and it just made the movie look so big. So I had to change half the effects, and I made more shots, and I ended up making the movie much bigger in a visual scale because the music was so big. I had to lift the rest of the film up to this level. It's emotional. It carries the feeling and the heart of the characters in the film.
Das ist sehr schwer. Ich habe für jeden Song eigentlich verschiedene Emotionen. Rochelle's Song hat mich eigentlich die Schauspielerin total begeistert, um ehrlich zu sein. Ich wollte ihr unbedingt einen starken Song geben, weil sie sehr, sehr stark spielt. Und ja, ich habe mir das Bild angeguckt und habe einfach drauf losgespielt. Einfach mit Klavier, so habe ich den Song angefangen und ja, das ist dabei rausgekommen. Einfach mal ein Gefühl.
Got one of the most famous opera singers in Bulgaria to come in, and she did an amazing job. Uta, his ex-wife, she'd been there when I was writing the film, she'd been there on the shoot, she was also there during the post-production, and then she sung on the soundtrack as well, and you can hear her voice so many times, and it's really special. It really created a mood in the film. She was on set every day and was even doing up people's hair and doing all sorts of little things on set.
Are you getting all this on camera?
You like it, huh?
I like it.
I know.
You're all of a sudden my favorite hairstylist.
And then in post-production was invaluable with the feedback and even, as I said, with the music, helping compose the music and get the music produced.
Ich möchte noch einige Worte sagen zu Utes Stimme, die ich super, super gerne einsetze. Also ich glaube, das ist die schönste, sanfteste Stimme, die es auf der Welt gibt. Für bestimmte, sehr sanfte, schöne Stellen gibt es nur eine Stimme, das ist Utes Stimme. Ich habe Mira, die Opernstimme, für Chöre, für die Bombast-Sachen eingesetzt, aber Utes Stimme ist wie ein kleiner Engel. Der fliegt und fliegt und fliegt und deine Fantasie anspornt, um zu überlegen und wie ein Vogel zu fliegen. Ja, also die Chöre sind verrückt, die Chöre sind riesig. Neil ist zu mir gekommen und hat mir von Hellraiser die Musik gegeben und sagt, so möchte ich das. Und wo ich das erste Mal den Hellraiser oder Hellbound den Song gehört habe, habe ich mich an den Kopf gefasst. Da habe ich gesagt, wow, fuck. Ist sehr, sehr groß. Ja, dann haben wir die Chöre versucht, wir haben die Strings aufgenommen, alles, und also die Chöre sind zu zweit gesungen. Klingen riesig fett. Mira und ich. Ich habe 20 Mal eingesungen, Mira hat 20 Mal eingesungen. Das ist sehr viel Arbeit.
There's a real big advantage to working in Bulgaria. I mean, Neddy is German, but he's based in Bulgaria at the moment, and his studio is here. And it's great. He can just call up someone and say, I need a violinist, I need an opera singer, and they're here within a couple of hours. And these are world-class musicians. I mean, I've worked with orchestras and choirs in Germany, and they're pretty good, but here, they're really good, and they're fast, and they're precise. And there's no bullshit. They just go straight to the point. They just play, and that's it. And it's so emotional, and it's not like it comes out of a machine or anything. These people, when they play and they perform, it's from the heart. I think one of my other favorite bits is when we have Uta's voice in there many times. For some reason, she's got this voice that just breaks through the music, and you can always hear her in the voice. And she has this low to middle harmony that just comes through. You've got the high opera voice, but then she comes in and it just gives us this texture.
Aber in Bulgarien oder besser gesagt in meiner Stadt, wo ich das Tonstudio habe, ist ein gutes Symphonieorchester und ich habe die Musiker schnell zur Hand. Also ich brauche wirklich, wenn ich abends sitze und den Song einspiele auf dem Keyboard, brauche ich den nächsten Tag die Leute, die kommen und das sofort einspielen. Ich habe keine Zeit zu warten. Und deshalb habe ich hier auch das Studio gemacht. Ich habe die Leute schnell zur Hand. Es geht von einem Tag zum nächsten. Um Filmmusik zu machen, muss man sehr schnell sein. Man hat unheimlichen Zeitdruck. Man muss wirklich sehr professionell arbeiten, sehr schnell arbeiten.
My favorite piece was with Rochelle, the actress, playing Contessa. And you could just see, the music tells you what she's thinking.
Wo ich den Song gespielt habe und ich habe die Szene gesehen, sind mir selbst die Tränen gekommen. Also es ist selten, es passiert eigentlich wirklich selten. Aber bei dem Song hat es mich eigentlich gut getroffen. Ja. Ein Komponist erzählt eigentlich, er kann nicht erzählen, wie und was er schreibt. Das ist eine ganz bestimmte Art, wie man was schreibt. Erklären, ist schwierig, es ist wirklich schwierig. Man setzt sich hin und schreibt. Man hat's oder man hat's nicht. Fertig. Ja, ich wollte unbedingt was sehr Besonderes machen. Duresi ist gestorben und dann, er fliegt dann irgendwie, die Seele fliegt und oh Gott, es ist zu viel, es ist wirklich viel. Er stirbt und die letzte Endmusik, so dass die Seele hochfliegt und dann das Raumschiff fliegt und man sieht das Kreuz, ja, es ist alles irgendwie zusammen, man kann es nicht erklären. Und das Kind nachher am Strand, wollte ich unbedingt eigentlich was sehr, sehr Eigenständiges machen. Also es musste eigentlich sehr, sehr klein sein, aber sehr stark trotzdem. Mit der Stimme ist mir das eigentlich sehr gut gelungen, mit dem Klavier davor.
The composers I've worked with in the past were really, really good. But Neddy has just gone beyond everything. Everything I expected, and I never knew this much talent existed. In one person, and he's just a freak for this. You can't stop him. I understand that because I guess I'm the same way with my films and my ideas, but The difference between him and I is that he has a talent.
Es ist ganz komisch bei mir, wie ich Songs schreibe. Ich glaube, das ist bei jedem unterschiedlich. Das ist menschlich halt. Ich gehe gerne zu Fuß von zu Hause bis zum Studio. Und in den 10, 15 Minuten, wo ich zu Fuß von zu Hause zum Studio gegangen bin, ist mir das Lied eingefallen. Ich habe mir das gesungen. Dann bin ich ins Studio gekommen, habe das in einer Stunde eingespielt. Am nächsten Tag habe ich die Leute gerufen und schon war der Song fertig. Binnen 2, 3 Tage hatte ich einen riesen Song fertig. Das ist dann drin, das kommt. Manchmal habe ich eine Welle, wo ich 5 Songs oder 5 Parts an einem Tag komponieren kann. Manchmal halt nur ein oder so, aber eigentlich fließt es bei mir immer. Ich habe sehr viele Ideen momentan. Ich hoffe, das bleibt auch so.
And you hear this in the music. You can hear that somebody who made the music really cares about the music. And I mean, I'm still floored to this day. I can't get the music out of my head, and this is the problem. I understand when he says to me, I wake up, I hear the music. I'm eating breakfast or lunch, I'm hearing the music all the time. I'm having sex, I hear the music. I get this because now I've heard the music. It's in my head as well. It doesn't go away. It stays with you. And I think that's the great thing about this is that, okay, my film's of a certain level, but this music is so good that it forces you to stay with the film and you have to watch it over and over again, and the music will just bring everything to life.
They used to perform together, did a few albums, and they donated one of the songs for the end of the film, which was really nice. You can see Nettie singing, and you can even see Uta doing some of the harmonies, which is really special for me because it's 2 people who are really important in my life and were able to really contribute, I guess, to the movie. So.
Walk through the silence, dark is the night. With wind in my face, I search for the light, counting the stars and hiding my tears, longing for someone to take away my fears. Nightingale, come sing with me. My heart is full of pain, but I know the morning comes, the sun will rise again. Far, far away, thousands of light years, I'm far away, flying alone. Far, far away, more than a lifetime. One day I know I'm coming home.
I said earlier, this is, you've already planned in your head what effects you're going to do. Hopefully by the time your editor's cutting, maybe you yourself are doing the effects yourself. And this is not a bad thing. It's kind of fun to do. The tools I've been using have been Adobe After Effects, Shake, what else? Nuke, Flame. I mean, I've used just about everything. So I've got some sort of concept of what is cool to play with. But these days, I'm just pretty much using Adobe After Effects and Photoshop. There are so many techniques out there of on how to do things. As I said, videocopilot.net is one of the best resources around for finding out, how to do your own effects. Obviously, you've got to have a pretty kick-ass computer with preferably a Macintosh. PCs are okay as well to run After Effects. You've got to have a good video card, always run your backups when you're doing your effects every single day. Your computer will crash a lot when you're doing effects, so constantly have backups. But running After Effects and doing tutorials, creativecow.net is another one. Just search online special effects or After Effects tutorials. You will find whatever you need. Start playing with the software, start experimenting, start importing, doing all these special techniques. And then see how it works. Now with special effects, I'm going to tell you this. The first time you do the effect, it's okay. Second time you do it, you might want to redo it 3 or 4 times. Pretty much every film I've done, I've redone my effects 3 or 4 times before I've let it go into the film as a final piece. When you see the spaceships in my movies, they're all 3D animated stuff. I had to buy the physical spaceship models. I mean, I paid up to $500 for one spaceship sometimes. It's worth it if you're going to see that spaceship in the movie a lot. That spaceship is then animated in a program like what I use is Cinema 4D, a fantastic program. Again, if you want to learn how to run that program, you can read the manual, you can watch video tutorials. They're everywhere on the internet. You can even buy some good tutorials as well. But basically, figure out what 3D software you're going to be using if you're going to be using it. Another one is 3D Studio Max is another really good one. That's more for PC, of course. Maya is another very good one, and Lightwave. They seem to be all the good ones, but they all do the same thing, basically. Get to learn them and practice and practice and practice and practice. You will get bogged down with the effects. So try and start the effects as early as possible. While your editor's cutting, you start on the effects, you keep working, keep working, keep working. It's basically a learning process with effects. You learn by doing, okay? So even if you're writing, you want to start playing with the effects, start playing, start practicing with the special effects, It's a constant evolution, okay? And, what I did in 2003 was revolutionary in 2003. You look at my 2003 movie Battle Space now and you go, looks kind of crappy, effects-wise. It's okay. Back then it was good. I could say the same about Humanity's End. I was doing a lot of these camera moves and stuff, which was not considered normal, or it was considered very, unconventional back then. And of course now everybody's doing camera moves and stuff and motion tracking. So it's always a constant learning phase. But if you're going to do effects, do it yourself. It's fun. It's really good fun. You can sit there on your computer, your editor's cutting there, you're doing the effects, you've got your music going, blah, blah, blah. Of course you've got no life, but you've got a good life. And then when the computer starts rendering and putting all those effects together, you can walk away and, go have a swim, go for a run, come back, see if it worked or not. Redo it and redo it and redo it. When you get the effects done, drop them into the movie, see if it works in the flow of things. You might have to go back and take them out and everything else. The one thing with effects is you want to get organized with it, okay? So you do a scene number. So you might say this effects shot is going to be scene 3A, and a little description, explosion. Scene 3B, scene 3C, 3D, 3E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Depending on how many effects a scene has, sometimes it could just be a matte painting. A matte painting is basically where you might just take an entry shot of a field and you want to have a castle in the background. Well, basically you take a photograph of a castle, you go into Photoshop, you cut out the castle, you place it into the shot, blend it together nicely. There's your matte painting. All of a sudden there's a castle there that wasn't there before. That's a matte painting. Those things are quite simple to do now. That used to be like really hard to do. And that's another world. You want to learn that skill set, learn Photoshop. It's a fun thing to do. It's a lot of fun to do. Look at the tutorials online, but just practice and practice and practice. It's the only way you'll do it yourself. Otherwise, if you can't do the effects yourself, you're too busy, this and that, and I understand that most people aren't computer brains like I am. Find somebody who can do it. Find somebody who's studying in college, or film school who's studying effects, or find an effects school who are doing special effects and approach them and say, hey guys, can I have some of your students to work on this movie? I'm doing a feature film. Sounds great. It's better than a short. Can I have you guys, work on this for free as a, maybe as a class project? Often they'll say yes, and that's a good thing. By the way, that technique also works when you're doing like makeup effects as well. If you lean like creatures and something, maybe you can find a makeup effects school who'll do that for you. But those sort of things are good and they do work. If you come on board as a professional and say, look, hey, I've got the girl from Star Trek in my movie, I've got the girl from Babylon 5 in my movie, or whatever, and the girl from Buffy in my movie, and you go to this effects company, they go, really, you got those people in your film, you got it all shot? That's fantastic. Maybe we'll come on board because this movie sounds cool. You still only cost you $27,000 to make the movie, but suddenly you've got an effects company who's working for you. So that's when you got to be organized with your shots, get them descriptions, names, maybe do up little storyboards to help the people, understand what you're doing. But it's a matter of just being organized with everybody and just give everything names and numbers and write it all down, have everything backed up and constantly do backups. My movie, Humanity's End, and my movie Battle Space both had a lot of effects in them, a hell of a lot. My latest movie, Alien Armageddon, didn't have so many effects in it. Do you know what? It's a better movie. I'm going to tell you why. People like watching people. People like watching people act and react. You can watch effects and be bamboozled for the first 5-10 minutes, and then you're going to get judgmental of it, and then you get bored with the effects. You want to see people do things and interacting. Don't kill yourself with the effects. Keep it simple. Maybe you only have 5 effects shots in the entire movie. That's okay, That means you can polish those effects and make them better. The less effects you have, the better the effects you have in will be. The higher number of effects you have, the worse the movie will be. I've been bogged down for 3 years doing special effects. You know what? The movie wasn't any better. I should have put that money and time into the acting, the script, and the directing, because the effects didn't make the movie. The people made the movie. The story made the movie. And that's the truth. That's the truth about everything. Special effects are nice. I've done the effects movies, okay? I know what I'm talking about. Don't invest your life and time into just the effects on the movie alone. It will not make the movie anything more special. If your characters and story is nothing great, the effects won't help. If you've got great characters and story and you've got shitty effects, it might be okay. If you've got, nice, few effects in there, a great story, you've got a really good movie. And, that's the truth about it. Special effects are wonderful, but they're tools. And they're only tools for the appropriate moments. I've learned the hard way on that one, and that's why I give this to you now. Don't kill yourself on the effects. If you do it well and do it clever. There's a thing called ADR. It basically means that if you're on set and you recorded somebody's voice and there was a lot of noise around, or the sound guy fucked up or whatever, you've got to replace the actor's voice, later in the studio. And that's, a point of replacing his speaking. ADR, we'll call it. The reason I like good sound people is I hate doing ADR. It always sounds like shit. It always sounds fake, no matter what the studio is and how good the ADR people are. It always sounds like crap. Now, if you know that, okay, you're on set and you've got a big machine close by that's making a lot of noise, okay, what you can do is okay, do your shot, do the scene, shitty sound, then take the actors and have them run the dialogue again a few times, just close by in a back alleyway or somewhere where there's live sound and stuff that, that's still similar sort of environment. You could then match that audio in pretty close later on. Try to get as good sound as you can on set. If you can't do it during the take, get them to retake the sound afterwards on the location. They'll still be in the same mood and mode, and their voice texture will still be the same. When they come back 6 months later, they'll have a completely different voice. They'll be out of character. It's so hard to match this and get it perfect, I'm telling you. It is an art form in itself. My last film, Alien Armageddon, my sound guy was so good, I didn't need to do any ADR, and that's a great thing. We took the effort, we made the effort to make it work. Sometimes, though, I would take the audio from other takes and drop it in and kind of match it and cut the audio in. That's a different thing in itself. But pretty much, if you have to do ADR, don't do it in a little recording booth. Do it a little bit in a nice environment somewhere where they've got a bit of action, and have them stand up and have them act out the scene exactly as they did it. Try not to get them to change their tone of voice too much or anything else. You know, a good actor can always do the ADR perfectly, but as much as you can, get them into a natural environment. If you have a microphone nice and close like this, it's going to sound like shit. If it's going to be in an echoey room and it sounds super close, ADR can really fuck a movie up so badly. I saw it. I saw a movie that was all ADR. Obviously, the sound guy fucked up, and they would have spent, you know, a week redoing all the audio. Why didn't they just spend an extra week, you know, getting a good sound person, spending the money for a sound guy? I don't know. There's no excuse for getting, you know, shit sound on set most of the time. There's really no excuse. Try and assume you're not going to do ADR. It's a killer. If you have to do it, you do it. Okay, and then it's nice and clean, and that's always good. I'm going to tell you the advantage of having, you know, clean dialogue. Okay, when you've got your movie finished and you want to sell it to somewhere like Japan, okay, where they get basically what they want to do is take out the English and put in the Japanese. You have to deliver a movie without the talking. So if you do a scene with somebody and they're, you know, rustling their clothes and standing and talking, mumbling and picking their, you know, ears or whatever, and you can hear all these weird sounds, that's fine. So then if you have to then take out that dialogue piece, you're going to lose all of these, you know, rustles and all of that. It's all going to disappear because you've cut out the dialogue. So later what you have to do is put those sounds back in, or alternatively edit them out accordingly. If you have a good sound guy, you know, he's going to really let you know, okay, you have a problem here, a problem there, and, you know, you'll edit the sounds out accordingly. The idea is when you deliver a movie, make sure that your dialogue and just the dialogue itself, just the speaking, not the rustles of the clothing or anything else, is isolated on one channel. The idea of this is when you want to deliver a movie to France, Germany, or Japan, or wherever, and they pay good money, by the way, make sure that you can deliver a version of the film that has all the rustles of the clothing and the noises and everything else without the dialogue in there. Now, this will come out in the edit room very quickly. You'll be able to sort of see, and you'll be able to start isolating your audio very early on. So as you lay down your editing and everything else, you're going to keep all the dialogue here, and all the other sounds are going to be down there, even in the basic editing. When you do your sound mix, of course, you know, that's going to be a critical thing. But really start to work towards that. Sometimes you have to do ADR to basically isolate, you know, the sounds from the speaking. You know, sometimes you've got no choice. So you have to redo the rustles of the clothing, have to redo the footsteps, you have to redo the talking. If you plan cleverly and are aware of this when you're shooting, you might say, okay, we're going to do a take now without the talking, just the footsteps. And we're going to do a take now with just the clothes rustling. People think you're crazy when you do this on set, but you know what? It saves you hours and hours and hours of work later on. And yeah, you'll have to reline it up to the actual action, but it's okay. Don't say, I'm going to leave it till later because you're in the panic on the shoot. Don't say, I'll leave it till later. Always get as many raw materials as possible. Raw materials are what you need to make a good finished product. If you don't have the raw materials when you're shooting, you're going to have a big problem in the edit room, in the sound mixing room. You're going to cost you thousands of dollars to do this again, you know. So little things to be aware of, but very big things. You know, plan for ADR, plan for you know, any noises and rustles, but just be aware of a scene when you're shooting a scene. Make sure you're getting all the raw components that you can recreate that scene later in the sound room, in the mixing room, because it's all about separation. It's all about keeping this bit separate from that and that. But that. Your sound guy will help you with that, because if you have a good sound guy, that's why you pay the money. He'll say, can we get a clean version of that without this, or a clean version of that? If he's good, he'll do that for you. And I was lucky to have, you know, a couple of good sound people who would always keep on the ball about that. And you know, they're the small secrets that save you a lot of money. Now, sometimes when you're doing a film, you have no choice but to get bad sound or whatever. And there's a few little techniques you can do to really help your sound, you know, in the editing room, the sound mixing room. Basically, just say, for example, you know, you're on a place where they have a very, very loud air conditioner running, and it's in the scene the whole time in the office, and you can't turn the air conditioner off. You know, what are you going to do? I have a lot of things. I have a big sound effects library, and again, you can get your own sound effects library by doing a search online, and you can buy these things. Sound Ideas is a very good company, for example. And I mean, these libraries can be bought anywhere and everywhere, and they're contain all sorts of different sounds. I use a lot of things called drones, and what drones are is just like this constant hum in the background, or noise, or sound effect, or an atmospheric noise that somehow it goes in the background. And you can put this throughout the whole scene. It gives the scene a bit of a tone. It often helps too if you don't have music. It gives the scene a bit of life. Always I'm putting some sort of atmospheric in the background. And that could just be a bird tweet, or you know, it could be cars driving past, could be traffic noise. It could be anything, or it could be a weird hum the whole way through. It might give you a tone that you might need. And what that also does, it masks the problems you have in the live sound. Sometimes in the live sound, you know, the sound is not so perfect. And, you know, you've got all sorts of things going on. So you really want to, you really want to try to mask that. I use sound effects a lot to help tell a story. Sometimes the sound effects too, you can add sound effects in later to try to give you know, characters, you know, some interesting thoughts. You can show people what they're thinking. I did that in Alien Armageddon, you know, when I had a girl staring in the window, and she basically was hearing child voices, you know, child play voices in her head. I mean, that was sort of telling you what she's thinking, how she's feeling. And I didn't have to put a word in there to say, I'm going to do this for the children, or anything like that. Just the fact you hear a sound effect lets you realize maybe this is what the person is thinking and hearing in their own ears. And it can help paint a picture for the scene. It can create a good mood for the scene. I really came on board with sound effects a lot in my second movie, Two Become One. And the film was really creepy. It didn't have a lot of music in it, but it had a lot of eerie sound effects and stuff. And I was very happy with being able to use sound effects to sort of paint a picture. You know, for me, sound effects are pretty much worth spending time doing. And yeah, you spend a week or 2 weeks just doing sound effects, but it's worthwhile. Same with the music. Once you got the sound effects and the music together, you could find they fight together. And that's why you would end up saying, well, maybe there's too many drone hums, and also too many other things in there. Sometimes you'll take the music out. Sometimes you'll take the sound effect out. It's a matter of choice. But as I said, often don't kill yourself with the music. But sound effects, you know, I think that's always going to add a bit of life to the film. Just don't overdo it, you know, with any whooshes and that sort of stuff. I mean, that's great for cartoons. But reality, when I move my arm like this, I don't hear, well, maybe, okay, I sort of heard something. You want to accentuate the motion, that's all. And, you know, it's different, of course, if you're doing an Asian fighting film or something like that. Those films tend to have a lot of accentuated effects. But generally, you know, don't kill yourself, but find the right sound effects. And if you look, I've been known, you know, I did a fight sequence again in my second movie, and what I had to do was basically, you know, I wanted people to be punched. And honest to God, I got a microphone just right like here, and I would like this. But see, that really hurts, but you can feel it. You can feel the sound. It feels like a real hit. It's not like the, you know, when I do this, I'm going to do it lower. Oh, but it feels real. You know, sometimes that, it's skin hitting skin. It's reality. Sometimes you're just going to run around and record the sounds. That's okay too. I've done a lot of that. It's kind of fun to do it. Get a little bit punished afterwards, of course, but, you know, that's how it is. I'm going to be all bruised a period later. And I was very severely bruised because of the fight sequences in my movie. So you've got your film locked and cut and everything else is good. You haven't color graded yet, by the way, but you have, you know, locked it down. You've got your music. So now you have to tie everything together. So now you're going to do a sound mix. And what that means is, you know, taking all, like, what I do, I'll explain it very basically. I export blocks of audio ready for the sound mixer to do it. So an example would be, I would export just the dialogue by itself, just the speaking on its own. Then I would export the atmospheric noises, you know, as I said, the drones, the bird tweets, the traffic that I put in later. Stuff that I didn't record live that I put in later, so I'll just export just the atmospherics. Then I would export the punches, you know, the hits or whatever. Then I would export just the gun noises, you know, by themselves. And they're all grouped together as a block. Then the explosions, then the, you know, the incidental noises, or the, you know, whatever it might be, the bleeps from the machines or whatever. Export everything in nice groups, so it's all well named. Export everything as, you know, put it in folders, keep it all organized. Give it to your sound mixer, or you mix it yourself. Programs like Soundtrack Pro, Logic, Pro Tools, all good programs. Again, you've got to try to get your hands on. You've got to get your hands on what software is simple and easy to use if you're going to do it yourself. I'd definitely recommend something like Soundtrack Pro, or you know, even GarageBand or something like that. You know, is good for doing basic sound mixing. But once you've got everything exported, then you're going to give it to a mixer. The whole point of mixing, here's the point. Here's a little technique I've got. You know, you want to have a big sound effects and blah, 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 blah. And what'll happen is you'll basically, everything will get louder and louder and louder, and you'll mix loud. And you'll say, I can't hear that, so I have to turn up that sound effect. Instead of turning that sound effect up, pull everything else down so you can hear it. It's called mixing down. If you mix up, you're going to say, I can't hear the gunshots, so you put the music, you know, you put the gunshots higher. And then the gunshots are too loud and you can't hear the music, so then you have to put the music up higher. And then you put in the, you say, I can't hear the footsteps, so I'll put the footsteps higher. And all of a sudden, everything's too loud and it's way up in the red. If you can't hear something, pull something out, pull it down, pull it down, pull it down until you can hear it. And it's a little technique that you know, mixers do use, but if you're doing it yourself, don't overdo it. Don't keep pumping it up, pulling down, pulling down. And it's a matter of, again, like editing, going over and over the sound mixing. I'm not going to explain to you how to do a sound mix, but if you want to find somebody who can do a mix, maybe the guys in the band who did the, you know, the music for you, who supplied one of the songs, maybe they have their own studio, they want to take it on, maybe they can do a good job, I don't know. Alternatively, your composer might offer to do it. Alternatively, he might know somebody who can do it cheap. You can go to these audio schools of engineering and say, look, I need somebody to mix my sound for my movie. I have no money, but it could be a good, you know, thing for your students. And they say, yeah, why not? This could be fun. And then you'll talk about specs and how you have to deliver the sound. It'll be 48K 16-bit or 48K 24-bit, or maybe above that, depending on you know, your level of production. What that means is it's the quality of the sound. 16-bit and 24-bit is related to how much information is in there, how much it's compressed down, how much breathing room it has, basically, how much technical quality you have. The larger, the 16-bit is, it might be this size file, 24-bit would be this size. And, you know, obviously you want to be the best quality you can. 48K, 48 kilohertz is the frequency range that's normally used for film anyway. Well, actually, it's now 96 kilohertz, but that's another story. But a good standard is 48 16 or 48 24-bit. I always work in 48K 24-bit audio, and that's not MP3s. That's not, you know, any compression whatsoever. That's clean AIF audio. Little side point. If you're using Final Cut Pro, and you've got things like WAV files or WAV audio files, don't use them. WAV files don't lock in tightly with timing so well. AIF files are much better files to be using. It's a small point, but you know, believe me, when you come into timing issues, use always AIF files. Don't use waves. I've had so many problems using WAV files. It's just the way they relate to time code, you know, interpretation and everything else. It's a small technical point. But like I said, get your sound mixed. Important that it's mixed nice and firm with a nice limiter and compressor on board. What a limiter and compressor is, basically, you know, this is the top point of where the sound should be, okay? You want your sound to, you know, be in this range as much as possible. You want it to be as loud as possible to be near the top, but if it starts hitting the top, it starts distorting. The compressor limiter and everything else, what that'll do is keep the sound to stop it hitting the top of the spike, and keep it, you know, fat, full, contained, compressed, strong, nice sound. That's something you should talk to a professional about if you don't know too much about mixing sound. Again, because of my experience, I've hung out with lots of people who mix sound. I go into their studios, I talk to them, I learn constantly. constantly just go and listen to people and talk to people. That's how I learned to mix sound. I'm not the best sound mixer on the planet, but I can do it for my own movie. I can do it to the point where I can at least make it reasonable sound and it's releasable and nobody's complaining. Even the Germans, when you sell to Germany, they're the most fussiest people on the planet for sound and picture. And if they accept your work, then you're obviously doing a good job. All I do is learn from people. If somebody's mixing the sound, I ask a million questions and, politely, of course, and say, why are you doing this? Can you explain this to me? And they will explain it to you. I'm not going to give you the course on audio mixing because I'm not an audio engineer professional. I just know some information and I let people, I let the professionals do what they have to do. If you have to do it yourself, learn what you can, do it in a basic way, do it simply, do it well, and then ask somebody's advice to see if they can help you at the end of it. So obviously when you've done the sound, you've got to deliver, your final sound mix. It's got to be stereo M&E, music and effects, M&E, music and effects track. So that just means music and effects without the dialogue, and of course the regular stereo one. These days, everyone wants a 5.1 mix. It's not that hard to do a 5.1 these days compared to what it used to be. But basically the idea of a 5.1 mix generally is that your center, you have your big surround sound mix, basically. So you have a channel, the C channel, it's called C for center. The center speaker usually just has dialogue and some little sound effects and a bit of Atmos in it. That's the center speaker, just the speaking alone. Then you have left and right, L and R, which is obviously going to be music and sound effects on each side. Then you're going to have the right surround and left surround. These are the two speakers that go behind you. And these will have, obviously, other sound effects. Whether or not you put music in the rear speakers is a point of contention. Personally, I don't like to put music in the rear speakers because it gets a little too much. But you can do, and it's okay sometimes. And then, of course, you have your LFE, lower frequency effects, or subwoofer. And that's usually a big speaker that goes onto your TV or something. It's the whole boom, boom, boom. It's that vibration sound you feel. When the cars come up and they got the stereo going, you hear boom, boom, boom. That's a subwoofer. So basically that's going to have all your explosion and heavy effects, coming through that. Yeah, that's another point on how you do that. And we're going to cover that, we might cover that in an advanced class because I have some clever techniques on making a 5.1 mix when you're in a hurry and you need something that's effective. So, we'll talk about that one at a more advanced point. But if you can get a 5.1 mix, of course, it's better. It's more professional. But if you're only delivering stereo and you got a $27,000 movie, that's okay. It's okay because if you sell it for $100,000, you made $75,000 profit and it's only stereo, who cares? Often the DP says he wants to be involved in the color grading, and that's great if you can afford to pay him and come in. Sometimes he's too busy doing other stuff and he never really comes in. Depends on what the movie is. Remember I spoke earlier about color space. This is where this comes into play. So you've done your whole editing, you've kept everything in high definition. If your color space is basically not so strong, shall we say, like, it's 420 or 411, color grading is going to be a nightmare. And what's going to happen is you're going to want to turn the colors. You say, this is a nice daytime shot, but I want to make it dark blue and kind of spooky and weird looking. Once you start fucking with the colors and making everything kind of black and everything, it starts introducing digital noise into the picture. It starts making the picture degrade because then it's grabbing upon all the digital information that's out there and saying, well, this is compressed, so now it's going to magnify that compression and make it 100 times worse. And so your film starts to look like shit because you're doing too much heavy color grading, and this can happen very quickly. So if you've done the good color space, you're going to be in a good position with the color grading. A little technique I have, okay, if you're going to be doing the color grading yourself, that's one thing. Your editor will often offer to do it, and that's a good thing as well, because he's probably got a good eye for it. If you have if you're working in low color space area like 420, and I actually did on Alien Armageddon, my color space was 420, I believe, because I shot on the Canon 5D with a H.264 compression, etc. Anyway, I had a shit color space, but I basically wanted to bring the whole film up to a high quality color space level. So I put the footage onto a new timeline that was uncompressed HD and everything else. So I brought it up to a good standard, but I'm still dealing with the shit quality compression of the original footage. So what I do is I would put a bit of I would color grade it, put the blacks heavy and dark and everything else, and then you could see it's kind of breaking up. You get this kind of stair stepping in the colors, and especially when something's out of focus, it stair steps. You see you would see it goes from these little bands of information here and there. To break that up, I would add a bit of color, a bit of film grain. It's a little plugin. It comes with just about every piece of editing software, and it's a way of adding film noise into the picture, film grain. What it is, it adds little specks into the picture, and what it does, it breaks up that electronic compression and kind of makes it look more filmic, more like 35mm film. But it's a technique I was using way back in the year 1997, and I still do it to this day. It's basically allowing your digital picture to become more like film by adding noise, but it's nice speckled round noise done at the last minute. Don't do this until the last pass. So if you notice, that with your heavy color grading, that your picture's starting to break up and deteriorate and getting all this electronic crap in there, adding film grain will smooth it all out and give you a nice feel to it. That's what I did to really help the color space problems I had in Alien Armageddon. And it's a clever technique. I use it all the time, and it will always save your ass until you get to the level where you can be working in complete uncompressed raw data files, 4K resolution and blah blah. You won't have this problem then, but for this level, you're gonna have to deal with it, and you got to find clever ways to get around it, and that's a very clever way. If you've got good pictures and good lighting, color grading is just an enhancement. Sometimes here's something to be wary of. Don't use glow effects too much. It kind of looks old-fashioned. I know it covers up a multitude of sins, but glow effects can basically make your movie look kind of cheap and stuff. And you see a lot of cheap filmmakers using these things sometimes. It kind of washes out the skin, gives you this sort of polished feel, kind of almost a porn star feel, I guess. It's good sometimes, if you want a special dream sequence or something else, it works really well. But, to do a whole movie like that, and some people do it, I don't think it's a clever thing to do. You really want to avoid that sort of glitzy, Hollywood-esque looking thing, because that's a film. Unless, of course, you're doing a stylistic movie that requires this. As I said, as less effects as possible, a little bit of color grain, a little bit of, good coloring is going to go a long way for your movie. Mastering. Now, this is really important in this modern day and age. I'm pushing right now to have mastering on hard drives only. I would like to be delivering, my distributors films just on hard drives. Maybe that'll come, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe something else will change. But that's the way I work at it. Right now, though, we have to deliver films on either digital Betacam or HD-Cam SR. Physical tape, physical media is still gold. When you buy a movie for $20,000 or $50,000 from a filmmaker, you want to get something physical. You don't want just some data on a hard drive. You want something physical and hard. So at some point, and you'll see this in the budget, you've got to put aside some money for mastering. You can see my last movie cost over a couple of grand just to get the thing put onto HD-Cam SR. If you've cut everything in high resolution HD and it's all nice and looking pictures and everything else, you have to find a facility that'll run this from your computer onto tape. At least in Los Angeles, there's a million of these places around. Every city should have somewhere like that, at least one. Because, if you've got a TV station, obviously they'll have support for that TV station around you. You find a place where they can run it off, ring them up, ring around a bunch of places, get a quote, say, look, I've got a movie, it's finished in HD. Say to them, I'm going to need a digital Betacam master, I'm going to need an HD-Cam SR master as well. And your editor will be able to walk you through on how you set that up. But it's critical that you have a finished master tape. It's a form of backup, shall we say, at this stage. I mean, this may change in a couple of years, but right now it's a physical backup. It's a physical, master thing. You then leave that tape with your dubbing facility, the facility where they run off the copies of the films. And what will happen is, a distributor will say, I want to buy your movie. You ring up the facility and say, okay, can you please run off 3 digital Betacams and 1 HD-Cam SR from the master tape? And they'll make a direct clone from that master. The reason you want them to do it is that if you start doing this yourself, you're always going to be overseas or you're going to be somewhere else, and they want it in a hurry. You've got a physical place that's separate from you, where it's sitting, and it's put in a vault and stored there forever and ever and ever. And that's the point of having these master tapes put there. It's a good form of safety as well, but make sure you put aside money for that. People always make the mistake, then I made the mistake. I finished the movie, I didn't have enough money for mastering, and so I had to sell my car to pay for the film to be output to tape. I also, by the way, I found out very early on that Alien Armageddon was going to be on cable television in the US. Now, there are certain requirements for this, and that's a thing called closed captioning. So if you're a deaf person, you can push a button on your TV and you can suddenly see the words. I had to have the film closed captioned. So basically, once I finished the movie, I had to do a thing called dialogue sheets, where you write down all the dialogue only. You then take that dialogue script, you send it off to a closed captioning place with a QuickTime movie as a reference. They send it back to you with the special file encoded. And then you have to marry that text file to your master with a secret, encoding way, a way of encoding that information on the master tape. I don't do that myself. I just take the pieces I need and give them to the mastering place. And as they run off the master tape, they also run the closed captioning on there as well. It's a tricky process. It's very technical. That's when you need to have advice from your duplicating place. You speak to your closed captioning place first. You say, look, I need to do closed captioning. What formats, what choices do I have? They'll tell you. You speak to your duplication place. They say, yes, we've done closed captioning dubs before. You need to do blah, 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 blah. You get back to your closed captioning place, say, I need this. They'll send it to you. You pay them $1,000 or whatever it is. They give you a little text file that then gets encoded onto your master. Let the professionals handle this, because it's a nightmare to do otherwise. And if you don't get it exactly right, you get the film rejected and it can't go on television. It's got to be exact to their standards. So just hire professionals who do that. In Los Angeles, there's plenty of places. Do a search online, type in closed captioning, and then you'll find out places, and start doing the research yourself. It's very important that you get good people to do this. And it cost me a lot of money, so make sure you got the money put aside. I'd put aside about $3,000 for closed captioning and mastering, and you shouldn't go wrong. But make sure you ring the people up, do your own research, and get to know exactly how it works. Another problem you got: how many frames per second do you make your film in? Used to be 24 frames per second was film. Television normally runs at 29.97 frames per second. In Australia and the UK and most of Europe, it's 25 frames per second. My rule is I do everything in 23.976 frames per second, which is just below 24 frames per second. That's one of the high definition standards. That's when they say, when you see 24p, it actually means 23.976 frames per second. And the reason for that is that frames per second will then translate perfectly to the 29.97 NTSC frames per second. It also translates quite well to the 25 frames per second as well. It's a good starting point. And it seems to be now the standard of all movie making should be in 23.976 frames per second. That is an issue when you're doing your closed captioning, okay? Closed captioning broadcasts at the moment are in standard definition, and that runs at 29.97 frames per second. So before you have to figure out what if they're broadcasting in standard def, then it's got to be standard definition. It's got to be 29.97 frames per second. The closed captioning needs to be done at that frame rate. If you're doing HDKMSR, high definition 1080p master, your closed captioning has to be 23.976 frames per second. You've got to know what your delivery methods are. You've got to know exactly, what the TV stations want or the cable channels want. And it's a very specific point. It's all about research. And you call up the facilities, you speak to the project managers, and they'll help guide you through this. It's a big minefield right now, and it's a crazy, crazy world with all these different rules and everything else. But if you're at that level, yes, expect that you're going to have to jump a few hurdles for the mastering. It's completely normal. So obviously while you're editing, you've cut a trailer, maybe a few trailers. It always helps to do a few. You made the trailer, put it on YouTube, started to get a bit of a buzz about it. That's a good thing. Let me tell you one little clever thing. If you've hired the right type of actors, I'm going to tell you why. This is a backtracking thing, but why you've chosen certain actors. Choose actors who basically have their own publicists. It's really important. Publicists are people who are paid to publicize the actor. Now, if the actor's in a movie, the publicist is basically going to, for free, start publicizing your movie because that actor's in the movie. When the movie's finished, you want a buzz going. Not until, because you may not get the movie done in time, and they could be waiting years and years, and it could be wasted. So you want to start generate as you're doing the mastering, you want to start generating a bit of a buzz and a bit of excitement. So if you have the money to hire a publicist, do it. If you don't have the money to hire a publicist, hire people who have publicists on board. And often celebrities will have their own publicist. Sometimes some actors who are really clever will have their own publicist. And it's a clever thing to have because, as I said, it's suddenly free publicity for your movie. Put the thing on YouTube, put it on Facebook, make a Facebook page, do everything you can to get the movie virally spread. Get all your friends to tell all your friends and get them to build and, build up relationships with people. Do anything you can to get the thing marketed for free. We had postcards made and we went to San Diego Comic-Con. We had postcards handed out. Any way you can do to present your movie and get it promoted is a good thing, especially if it's your first movie. You can get all your friends on board and get them to go crazy and help you out. That's why it's really fun. That's a good time when you're really trying to promote the movie. Here's a little story. My movie was, Humanity's End was finished at 2008 and of course sold to a distributor. That distributor then sent out preview copies to everybody, to try to get them to buy the DVD. Of course, the movie leaked onto the internet and was suddenly the #1 most downloaded movie for that week. But this was 3 days before the movie came out. So everybody got to see my movie. Nobody had paid a cent for it, and everyone had downloaded it. 100,000 downloads in 3 days before the film came out. Then it came out, so it didn't hit as big, of course. And everybody had seen the movie. The problem is the screener disc they'd sent out was a very bad rough cut of the film. I'd let out to the distributor early to let them have a look. And they then manufactured that rough cut and sent it out as a preview copy, not knowing there was a better version coming. So everybody wrote reviews on the film based upon a bad rough cut of the movie. Little learning thing, but that's what happens. If you've got to send out screener discs to people, find out the name of the person you're sending it to. So I want to know the person's name who's going to be watching this copy. I'm going to put their name on this disc. That means if that person leaks that movie, they're going to be in big trouble. It terrifies people when they see their name embedded across the middle of the film on the screen. Don't make the mistake and put the disclaimer down the bottom, like I did once. I said preview copy only, blah, 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 down the bottom of the screen. And I had this throughout the whole movie. One distributor in Germany took that preview copy. I had a 5.1 mix on it too, by the way. He took out the center channel of the film because I just had the dialogue in the center channel, and he replaced it with German. And he letterboxed it out, and he replaced all these bits and made it his own little master. And he released the movie without my permission. So I sued him. I took him to court. I won. It cost me quite a bit of money. Because of the German laws, I never really got my money back, and that asshole is still doing similar sort of things to these days. But that just shows you even what distributors will do sometimes. They'll say, yes, we want to buy your movie. You give them a screener disc, it has a 5.1 mix and a little disclaimer on the bottom. They can still rip it and sell it. That's the sort of shit that goes on sometimes, and you've got to be very wary of it. So now I've put a disclaimer across the middle of the screen. Preview copy, blah, blah, blah. Serial number, always put a serial number on there and then put the person's name after it. And when you encode a copy for each person to view, make sure your DVDs are made specifically for that person. So when you're sending it to them, say, look, this is what I'm doing. These are the rules I'm sticking by. I don't want anybody else to see this film or let this film to get out of your hands. If it leaks out, your name is across the whole of the screen, and that means then that you will be responsible for the film being pirated worldwide. It usually stops people. I haven't had anybody yet let me down on this one, so that's the technique I use. I won't let the movie go out unless it's, seriously encoded with somebody's name and a serial number on there. That way, if anything happens, you can sue and you can track it back to the original source. That being said, try to get the movie out there in as many markets and territories as possible, as many film festivals as possible, any way you can to generate interest as quickly as possible, because soon this movie will not be as cool because, alien invasion movies are cool this year. They won't be cool next year. Nobody will want to see an alien invasion movie in 2012 or 2013 for sure. So try to get the movie out there as quickly as possible. Any free press is good press, and that's what you want to go for. Posters. Now that's another one. I've been doing my own posters. How I do my own posters is I look at other movie posters and I copy elements or ideas from them and try to make my own thing. I became very good at Photoshop. If you can't do it yourself, again, go to Craigslist and find people who are really good graphics designers. And what you have to do, and this is why your photographer is so important. Maybe when you're shooting the film, have an idea of what sort of poster you might want. and then show a picture to your photographer, show a photograph of the poster to your photographer and say, I want to make this poster up. Can you shoot the elements of these people accordingly? I need to do poster elements. So he will then, in a spare moment on set, he will actually photograph people standing like this, like this, like this, whatever it is. And he will be able to sort of help tailor make your poster nicely done. You got to shoot in a super high resolution. Otherwise, get clever about it afterwards and talk to a graphic designer about it. Maybe allow for 3 or 4 different versions of the poster to be made. And make sure this person has a good track record of making good artwork exactly in the style that you want. If it's somebody who's used to doing like living room catalogs and they've never done a movie poster, maybe it's not a good thing. Try to find somebody who has a stylistic vision that's already close to what you want. That poster will be representing your movie. So try to make it, honestly, we're doing a mockbuster. And say you're going to do something like a film that looks like Iron Man. Have a look at the Iron Man poster. Look how it looks, It's got a big steel plate or something like that. If you're going to be in that level of ripping people off, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but you want your film to be similar to, Iron Man, make sure the poster art looks the same. It's clever. And people will associate it as being the same type of movie. If you're going to copy people, copy good people. And that's the idea. And I'm not saying imitate people in a bad way, imitate them in a good way and, pay tribute, pay homage to them. But basically what you're doing is making a work of art that looks similar to the real thing. So I'm going to really now touch on getting a distributor in place. And this is the goal part of it. Distributors, in my opinion, there are some good distributors out there still to this day. Film distributors as a whole are thieves, criminals, assholes, liars, cheats, full of shit in every single way possible. There are a few exceptions. I'm thankful enough to have a very good sales agent on board who works with some very good distributors. But I'm going to tell you some horror stories so you know what to avoid. My first movie, I won't name them, but they are broke now. Basically, I went to a film market. We met up with them. We thought they were nice people. We had a couple of offers for the movie, from different distributors. To get offers, you just give them a copy of the film and say, look, are you interested, basically, with the disclaimer across the middle. One company offered us 20 years. It said, we want to buy the rights for 20 years. We'll give you no money up front. I said, doesn't sound like a good deal. Any company that gives you no money up front will never give you money, usually. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule, but most of the time, if they aren't giving you money up front, you'll never get paid. And that's usually the rule. And then that means you give it to the certain movie company, they want it for 20 years. You'll never get a cent, and they'll keep it for 20 years. It's a pretty shitty sort of way to do business, but that's how it is. So we got offered, one company said no money in 20 years, and the other company said no money and 3 years. And, we thought the smaller company who said no money in 3 years might, be good to give us a, nice bit of, might give the film a bit of attention. So they took the movie. They then off-sold the rights internationally. We gave them an international deal which said they could be our US distributor and they could also be our international sales agent. That meant they could then sell the rights to, let's say, Japan, for example. No, let's say Germany. I'll give you the truth. This company then sold the rights to my first movie, Demons in My Head, to Germany for a period of 15 years. Now, this US company only had the rights for 3 years, but did that then give them the right to off-sell the rights to another company for 15 years? Well, I looked into it legally, and yes, they did have, that is a legal loophole. You can actually do that. It's not a clever thing. So if I needed to have a disclaimer in the contract to say you do not have the right to sell the movie to other territories for a period of more than 3 years. You're limited to blah, 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 blah. So anyway, they sold it to Germany for 15 years. They probably got $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000. No, back then, they probably got $20,000. They also sold the rights to France. They also sold the rights to the UK. They sold the rights to many, many different territories. Now, they felt they didn't have to pay us a cent. I'm guessing they probably made $100,000 on the sales. They didn't pay us a cent. I'm going to tell you why. Because then they said, well, we had certain expenses and we haven't recouped our expenses yet. So somehow my film ended up paying for their expenses at the market expenses. So if they attend a film market, for example, it might cost them $5,000 plus the airfares, plus the hotels. It might be $20,000 for them to attend that film market and to market your movie to sell to other distributors. So therefore, they feel they should take that entire 20 grand and write that off against your film. Even though they might have 5 or 10 or 20 movies they're selling, they'll take that $20,000 amount and say, that's your expense. If you went to the market, that's the money you would spend to try to sell the movie before you actually sold the movie. Kind of right, but kind of wrong. I thought that was just really kind of low and dirty, but that's how it is. Apparently you always are supposed to get screwed on your first movie. That's the rule. My film did really well in the UK. We hit number 7 in the Blockbuster top 10. Back then, it was like in all the Virgin Mega stores. There was entire, rows of DVDs everywhere and VHS tapes. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing. But like I said, never made a cent off that. But somebody else was making a lot of money. The UK distributor made a lot of money. US distributor made a lot of money. They then sold the US rights off to another company for a longer period of time in the US. They sold it to a smaller company. And they got maybe another $10,000, $20,000. They got $50,000 for the rights, the US rights, which again, they never gave to us because they said, well, we have expenses. So as I said, they probably pocketed about at least $100,000. They never gave us a cent. And then they went broke. They did this to like 10 or 20 different movie companies. Suddenly they went broke. Oh, we can't find you. There's no accounting, etc., etc. Meanwhile, they pocketed maybe $1 million and run away. I went to the distributors in the UK and told them my situation. They didn't give a damn. They wouldn't even give me a copy of the movie, and they were really rude to me because they were also assholes as well. I went to the US distributors and told them the situation. They said, well, that's what happens, but we like you, and maybe we can do direct business with you on the next movie. I said, yeah, let's talk. You guys obviously have some money. You seem to be nice people. Let's talk. So second movie comes out. We did it for $2,500. It looked kind of cool. And it looked really good, actually, better than the first movie. So I basically took that film and said to them, okay, you want the rights for this film? You can have it for, you got to pay some money. We're not going to give this to you for free. And they said, of course, we'll give you $5,000. I said, well, that's okay. There's a bit and plus we'll share the profits of the international sales. Let's see how that goes. They took the movie. Meanwhile, I was getting all this press happening. We got like pages in Fangoria and all these other big articles in Hollywood Reporter about the movie. It's like, wow, an amazing movie done for $2,000. And then, so they paid the money. We'd received the money. And then all of a sudden, obviously, maybe they're going to stiff me, maybe not. They sold the rights off to another number of territories, to the UK, to Germany, to France, to Thailand, wherever. Those rights were sold off. They went broke as well. And they genuinely went broke and they closed their doors. I don't think they wanted to, but they went broke. And they went broke on the eve. They went broke quicker than they wanted to. They went broke on the eve of the film being released. Another month, if they stayed in business, my movie would have come out in all the stores and it could have been a big hit. So they went broke. I'd received money for the movie, but it hadn't been released. And to be honest with you, I think I'd rather have that movie released in the US because it would have really helped build my career. So is it a point of getting screwed and getting the movie released? If I get screwed, it's one thing. To get the movie not released, it's another thing. They then, then another company acquired a lot of their titles, and another distributor came on board and said, look, can we have the rights to these movies, as well? And I said, well, okay, just take them. Maybe you can share the money with me. I expect I won't get paid by you. I was right. I never got paid by the company, but that's okay. They were nice people. They were honest about it. They put the movie out. They sold it in packages of 10 and 20 and 50 and 100, literally hundreds of. They sold a package of 100 movies to Russia. My movie was one of them. That's how it is. Did I see a cent from that? No, I didn't. My movies are all over the world in many territories. In the meantime, distributors would contact me and, say, what about this? What about that? What have you got? Because they saw that my movies were being released everywhere and they're starting to get interested. Third movie came out, didn't have a distributor. I walked the halls of the American film market yet again. I was doing all the markets. Ran into some new people starting up a new company and said, look, we'd like this to be our first movie. And they offered me rights and this and that. And I looked at the contracts. I've been smart about contracts. I said, no, you got to either give me some money up front. We got to figure out market expenses this time. You're not going to screw me like you did in the past. Thankfully, this company was honest. They took my movie Battle Space, they released it, sold it to many territories, we made profit. That made me happy. That restored my faith in the business, because it is a movie business, it's not a charity. The distributors will take your art and they'll rip you off and take it and make as much money as they can from it and pay you nothing. This is always the rule. However, I found an honest distributor. I helped, I won't say I helped build his company, but this was the first movie out, so it helped start his company off and become something special. That's sort of how it went. The reason I found this distributor was that I walked the halls. I met many, many distributors many times, and I'd seen the companies that are in business. Because they'd seen me with movie number 1 and said no. Movie number 2, they'd said no. Movie number 3, oh, this is science fiction, we might say yes. Because they'd seen me there so many times over, selling my movie, selling my shit, they were very interested in the fact that I was still working. They knew I'd been screwed by the first 2 films, and they knew that somehow I'd managed to get a 3rd movie made. That's when they started to show interest in me. It's like, okay, this guy's for real. We're not going to rip him off. We're going to invest in his future and his career. He's not a one-off filmmaker who's going to do one movie and disappear. This guy obviously does this for a living. And that's sort of what started happening. So after that, because of the success of the 3rd movie, my 6th movie, Humanity's End, was a big budget film. We're able to sell to the same territories in the same places and get more money and start building up, more of a reputation. The distributors will like you when they know they have continuity of supply. If they know that you're going to get them a movie every 1 or 2 years, they need movies to sell. They're not going to screw you, because they know that this time, there's another movie coming and another movie coming and another movie coming that we want. This guy can make movies that we can sell and make money on. That's how they would sort of look upon me, basically. That's why they stopped screwing me and started saying, okay, we're going to take you seriously. It's because you have a continuity of supply. You're going to give us another movie and another movie. That's why I started doing mockbusters, was so that I could increase my position with distributors. I could start saying to them, okay, there's going to be a movie every 6 months or every year or every 3 months or whatever it is. It starts to make you look like a serious contender, and you become more of a movie studio. In a way now I've become a mini studio. I can basically, self-produce all the films without too much capital involvement. I don't need investors or anything else. And it's a working model. Basically, the plan is I make a movie for $25,000. If I can sell it in the marketplace and only make $100,000 on the sales, that's $75,000 profit, okay, per movie. If you can do 2, 3, or 4 of those a year, that's good. You can start building up stock and capital. Then you can start doing the bigger movies that you want to do and the better movies that you want to do. Is this model working? It started working. I'm the first movie to come out the door is Alien Armageddon. That's why I wanted to tell people how I do it, because I'm going to be doing a series of movies. I won't have time to tell people. I got a little bit of downtime right now. I figured I'd share all this information to people. Any marketing you can get is good. If you've got name actors in your movie, they will self-market the movie for you somehow, because when they go to do autograph shows or anything else or do guest appearances, the first question is, well, we see you're in this movie, The Terminator, blah, 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 many years ago. What are you doing now? Well, I've just finished a movie called Alien Armageddon. It's blah, 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 blah. They're always going to be talking about you in the press, because they're always going to be interviewed by the press. It's self-generating publicity. Another good way to help build up publicity is to do a premiere. Now, I've done premieres before. I think they're great for the actors and they make everyone feel good in the crew. But I'm not a charity. I'm not here to throw parties for other people's reasons. Again, my premiere of this latest movie cost me quite a bit of money. The reason it was worth spending the money on the premiere was this. We're able to get on board a couple of publicists, attached to the actors as well, who said, okay, we're going to start running a red carpet, and we're going to make a red carpet event. We're going to bring in photographers from all the different magazine places all over the world. We're going to bring in journalists and other people to help promote our actors who happen to be in your movie. So all of a sudden, the premiere turned into this little red carpet gala event. It was photographed. We got all these articles on IMDb. We were linked everywhere all over the world. And it was created a nice little bit of media flurry. I didn't have to pay a cent for that, except for I had to pay for the premiere itself. The premiere generated publicity of its own just by being on. Had a bit of class. People watched the movie, they enjoyed it. It created another buzz. Another thing you can do is invite the actors. If you want somebody famous for your next movie, say, I have a premiere of my current movie happening. Would you like to come and see the movie? Come and watch the film. If you like it, maybe we can talk about you being in the next movie. The actors like to come to premieres if there's a red carpet, because red carpet means photographs, which means publicity for the actors and everything else. They turn up, they sit down, get treated like a god for the night, see your work, be critical about it. At the end of it, they feel good and they say, yes, I want to be in your next movie. That's sort of how the game's being played at the moment. As I said, it's always a work in progress. There's always new information, always new technology and new things happening. As a producer, I have to be Mr. Marketing, Mr. This. As a director, I have to be the nice guy. Who am I inside? That's my personal knowledge. The person inside here is one person. What I'm presenting to you today is the producer's face, is the director's face. You have to wear these faces and be a certain type of way. If you start being yourself and start being miserable or crazy or this or that, you're not going to get anywhere in the world. People are not going to want to be around you. Generating a bit of hype, excitement, enthusiasm in who you are, how you speak, everything else, it's got to come from inside somewhere. But you have to present always a unified front for people. It's for me, it's a war. It's a battle. It's a race. It's not magic. It's not, movie magic. There ain't no magic in anything I do. It's just hard work. It's being organized. It's being clever. It's being smart about it. It's being organized. It's being clever. It's about planning your budget very well. Saying this is all I've got, so this is what I'm going to do. These are the ways, to make movies in this modern day and age. The budgets are declining terribly right now. And maybe the budgets will go up one day, who knows? But right now, you say, I've only got $20,000 to make a movie. That's fine. If you say, I've only got $2,000 to make a movie, that's fine. I made a feature film for $2,000 once. I sold it. I recently made a Sci Fi Blockbuster film for $27,000. I sold it. It's possible. All you have to do is be organized, be clever, plan, think with clarity. Do courses like this. Do other courses where they teach you things. Take a little piece from everywhere and then start to, put it all together. Research, talk to people. But be very clear with people. Be very concise with people. Say, I want to do this way and this is how I want to do it. You want to make the next Star Wars? Not going to be that easy. I tried making the next Star Wars for $143,000. I couldn't do it. Can I make a nice, concise movie about alien invasions of Los Angeles with a bit of, cool stuff? Yeah, it can be done. I did it for $27,000. As I said, you look at the budget breakdowns. You can see where the money was spent, where the money wasn't spent. Okay, there's no fluff. There's no, continuity person. Okay, people like continuity. People are great to have, but if you can't afford it, don't put them in the budget. You know what I'm saying? You don't need a continuity person. You don't need a first assistant director if you're organized and you're clever about it. You always need a camera. You always need sound. You just need a clever story, clean picture, good sound, and a nice way to put it together. And that's all you need. The point is, as long as the story's there, the characters are interesting, and it looks and sounds like a movie, you've got a movie. The secret is really do it yourself. Find your own way to do the movie yourself. Everyone's got their rules of this and this and this is how it has to be done in the industry and these are the rules of this. I remember once I asked this very famous director of photography, I said, could you teach me some information about, cameras and lighting and stuff? He said, no, I won't. I never understood this. And somebody said, well, it's because if he teaches you how it works, you're going to take over his job one day. And I thought that was pretty sad, that this guy, would never teach me these techniques. And I mean, to be honest, I've had the chance to hire this guy and I would never hire him in a pink fit because I've stepped way past his level. Find your own way to do it. Do it the best way. You've got your own skill set. I can't tell you what to do. I can show you what I did. And my skill set and your skill sets are something completely different. But if you can take anything from what I did, that's okay. Be clever about it. I'm very inventive as a filmmaker. That's all I do. So that's all I think about all day. So I'm sure you've learned something from this course. I hope you have. If this course, cost you $500 or $1,000 and it saved you $50,000, it's worthwhile. Don't ever let anybody say you can't do it. Your biggest oppositions might be people in the home or your best friend or the guy you work for or whatever. When people say you can't do it, that's when you say, no, I'm going to do it. I've been told so many times in my life, I don't have what it takes to be in the film industry or the television industry, or I'm a loser, I'm this, I'm that. I don't give a fuck, okay? I get shitty reviews for my movies all the time. I don't give a damn. The fact is, I keep moving on and I keep moving on, and I step on all these assholes who say negative things. I step over them and I move on and I move up. And these are the facts about, you know, actually getting things done in life. I don't have anything to fall back on. I'm forced to be a director. That's why I've been forced to figure out all these ways of making movies for almost no money. My movies are successful. They make money. They make profit. Hopefully one day I'll make a movie that's big and everyone enjoys. And, you know, artistically I'm respected as something special. But until that day, I've got to make a living, and I've got to make movies that sell and make a profit. And if I make a profit, I make another movie. I hope you can do this as well.